it is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating it
wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there's too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out the lies.
With rules for Thanksgiving. Who the hell is he to tell us what we're supposed to do?
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
Hey y'all, it's Savannah from The Savvy Truth with Right America Media. I'm just here to remind all of you that we are partnered with MyPillow and Mike Lindell. So, if you guys are looking for some fabulous sheets, towels, blankets, dog beds, or just in general some made in America, sold in America, produced in America products, please go check them out. And don't forget to use our phone number and our special code RAM, capital R, capital A, capital M. So please go check them out and support us by using our phone number and our code.
I'm Danny Wos Jr., producer of The Loaded Mic. I just wanted to let you know that you can find us at Simul TV, Right America Media, YouTube, and Rumble. You can also find the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Or you can go to loadedmic.com. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review.
I am a raging patriot. Welcome to KSok Uncensored. I have a special guest today, Kenny Pastén. I hope I'm saying that right. He'll probably correct me once he comes on. But before we bring Kenny on live, I want to talk to you guys about something. I just put a rant video out, and I'm sure that I'll get a lot of comments on it. But you know what's funny? Here in Portland, the mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, he had the gall to do a revitalization party downtown Portland today. And he was talking about how they're revitalizing Portland because of everything that happened following COVID. I did a video, tagged him and the entire city council, and I told them, how dare you have a revitalization party when you look around and it's nothing but homeless camps, vandalization. It's absolutely disgusting. It's a cesspool. Crime has skyrocketed. Murders are up 800%. And the list goes on. But he had the gall to have a revitalization party today. I was just completely appalled. I told him to stop sucking off the left. It doesn't get you anywhere. Oh, and he's pandering to people that don't even pay taxes. But that's typical for the left, right? They just want them dependent on the government. Well, what I want to do today is I'm going to go ahead and bring Kenny in early because you guys need to go check my rant out. It's just 2 minutes. I posted it on YouTube, Instagram. It's going to be on TikTok later this evening. Speaking of, if you follow me on TikTok right now, I decided to start a new account because mine has been shadow banned and it's not getting anywhere near the views that it once did because they've perma shadow banned my second account. So I've started a third, and it's KSok Uncensored. I've dropped the lower 48 for TikTok. Anyways, please go and check me out. Follow me there. If you're on TikTok already, I would really appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and bring in Kenny. Hey, okay, did I slaughter your last name?
Just a little bit.
I
know it's Pasten.
What?
It's Pasten.
Ah, I knew. You know what? I'm just really white. That's the problem. And I'm like, I can do a Johnson, a Smith, a Scott, but yeah, my husband makes fun of me all the time because he's from New York and they're a little more cultured there. But yeah, sorry about that, but hey, Bruno.
Don't worry.
Oh, anyways, I'm so happy to have you on. And you and I, we've been following each other for a long time. I would say maybe even a year at this point in time. And
I think it's been just over a year because it was like right at the beginning of COVID, or right, like I want to say it was like March or April. So yeah, it's been a while.
Crazy. Well, I'm happy that you are on today and lots to go over. But first, okay, you reside in the state of California, correct?
I'm from California. I'm currently on orders out here in Maryland.
Okay, okay.
So
You're in
still
Maryland.
pretty active in things going on in California, and if anyone shares. So what I try to do is I try to spread the word as much as possible. So if someone in California, knows of a rally or some sort of meetup or something going on important to California, they send it to me, and then I pass it along in my on my story, or I have a few different group chats going on Instagram that we share information.
Well, I want to hear about, because the first you and I had talked, you were setting up a MAGA hike in California. How did that end up going? Obviously, I wasn't able to make it, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, really well, really well. So, yeah, this was, me trying to rally people together and get something going and spread patriotism in Los Angeles. And yeah, I had so many people message me, and what the greatest part was, I had a lot of people send me messages saying, I've never actually been to any Trump-related events. I've never been to any conservative, meetups or anything like that. I'm afraid because I won't know anyone. And I said, you and everybody else, because not a lot of people are doing things in Los Angeles. Not a lot of people are getting together in large groups. Mind you, this was almost a year ago. Really before Huntington Beach was putting up large numbers, and right around the time that Beverly Hills rallies was also picking up. So yeah, I had so many people. I want to say at least 50 people messaged me saying that they were going to come, and it was going to be their first time, meeting any fellow conservatives in California. And I want to say, give or take, about 300-400 people showed up.
Wow.
Many more couldn't even actually get on the hike because it's Los Angeles and traffic is the worst and parking is even worse. So what I ended up having to do is I started telling people, hey, there's no parking here. Park at a grocery store and I will personally come pick you up. And I became a little shuttle bus, and yeah, people parked in the different grocery stores in Hollywood, and I just went and picked them up and shuttled people up onto the mountain. But a lot of people, they ended up just saying, hey, I was driving around for an hour and I couldn't find parking, so I just left. So yeah, that was unfortunate, but we still had a very large group. I still talk to a lot of those people today, and a lot of them are still active, going to the different rallies and stuff.
Well, I think that's great because, like, similar to here in Portland, you feel really alone. And it's almost, I know when I went to my first MAGA rally here, I was anxious because I had this feeling we were going to be met with Antifa. And thankfully, the one that I attended, we only had a few, I'm sure they were like 16, 17-year-olds that were there protesting, and they were very peaceful, as they like to say. These two truly were. But I had anxiety. I felt I was looking over my shoulder constantly. I feel like maybe on a hike it's a little different, but when you're in a parking lot or some type of event like that, when you're out in the open, you feel like a potential target. And
yeah, it was funny because we showed up, and then all of a sudden it was like a movie. People were like coming out from behind the bushes, or like from between cars, to like,
yeah,
you got MAGA, and everyone was like, they're like, hey, come on, and like people were just like coming out of the woodwork. It was the funniest thing ever.
I could totally see that happening.
And that's happened a couple of times when I put on events. I put on an event down at the Huntington Beach rally right after things had gotten crazy in DC, and I was out there by myself, just me, with my flag, and then all of a sudden a couple of people saw me, and then they ran out from behind buildings, and then a few more people started coming out, and it was just like a whole avalanche because nobody wants to be the first one. Nobody wants to be the one out there by themselves and being the target. And somebody's got to do it.
I get it. Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, it's funny. The event that I was talking about, I actually, my friend and I were meeting there, and she just happened to get there before me. And I was like, I called her. I'm like, hey, is it safe? Like I totally just threw her to the wolves. But anyways, yeah. So I feel like a lot of people feel that way. And it's so great that you're doing that, and more people, it's fostering this environment where people are feeling more and more comfortable not being this silent majority. Now, on that topic, as you know, my husband's a police officer, and just recently he was on duty, and this gentleman said, hey, just so you know, the silent majority appreciates you. And my husband was like, hey, you know, thank you. And then, but he was thinking to himself, you know what, how about this is the time to stop being silent. Like you're not helping us at all. Like, thank you for the appreciation, because that's a heck of a lot more than he generally gets. But the silent majority, I'm so over that. It's like, get some balls, hit the streets, and make a change. And, you know, we see people all over the country, all over the world, protesting against vaccine passports and COVID lockdowns. And I feel like it's crickets here in comparison. And it's really unfortunate. We're like, oh yeah, go Cuba. But we're not even standing up for our own people. What about the people from January 6th that are still locked up? So anyways, it's just one of the, I'm glad that you are actively making a difference and fostering that in other people that maybe wouldn't be doing that on their own. So I appreciate that.
I try. You know, I'm not a one-man show. You know, I have my little Southern California Patriots group that we all share information, and you know, if we can connect people, the more the better. You know, a lot of my friends went down to the We Spa thing in downtown LA. So
I saw that.
Yeah, we need to get boots on the ground, and like you said, you know, people need to stand up and be present. But it's you know, it's rough. You know, especially like someone that's single. You know, they don't want to put on their bio on their Instagram or their Twitter or even their Tinder or Bumble or whatever apps they might have, that they're conservative. But with the other people, it's quite the opposite. You know, with them, they're like, you know, especially here in the DC area, everyone puts on their fully vaxxed or like Moderna gang or, you know, like living that Pfizer life or just random dumb things like that. And like, God. It's so insane. It's so insane. But yeah, I mean, like
so I can make fun of them.
Hey, get a Tinder account and just laugh at people.
Sorry, Kenny. I have a few Oregonians on here today. I have Grants Pass, Oregon, which is down by California. Earlier, I feel like I had somebody from the Salem area. And now I have my friend, sorry, I won't say his name, Royal here, who's telling me that he finally got a notification. So maybe I'm slightly out of shadow ban jail. We'll see. But, so that's exciting. If you got, everyone's been saying, I don't even get notified when your show goes live. Like I have so many people that, you know, they're doing it on purpose. I'm not stupid, but yeah, you know, it's funny. I was smirking while you were talking about the dating piece because, oh my gosh, last week I had the conservative Korean on, or Korean conservative, excuse me. Oh my gosh. And he was talking about
him and I actually met at the Huntington Beach rally.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. He just cracks me up. But he was talking about, as you probably saw, that very thing where he's guilty of not putting conservative on intentionally so that he could continue. I won't go into the description he used, but so that he could continue to actively date, let's just say. Massachusetts, all right. But anyways, that's a real issue. That's a real issue. But you know what? What I say is you don't want to date people that are that ignorant. You don't want sheep liking you anyways, right? Like it's just I
don't know. Have you ever heard the term flirt to convert?
Oh my gosh. You know what? Do you think that people can actually be converted. I mean, unless you're going for like the 18 and under crowd, then maybe they can still be indoctrinated. And
no,
like red pill.
I've dated a few liberals that hanging out and coming out to events and hearing my point of views definitely has turned them around.
Really?
So
All right.
so it's a real thing. You know, but all you can do is your part, right? I mean, every little bit helps, every little you know, baby steps. So yeah, like you said, you just got to be present. You got to show your presence and let people know who you are and what you're about.
I like that. I like that. All right. I'm very close-minded. If someone told me they were a liberal, I'd say, get the hell out of my face. But you know, I'm married, and I guess I have the ability to do that now. But yeah, good for you.
You don't have to worry about that sort of thing.
If the flirt to convert works for you, I mean, back in my single days, I had I almost said Trump, a Bush sticker on my truck. And I did get quite a few dates from that because they loved that this chick's driving a truck around with a big old Bush sticker. But so I've always been pretty particular. I mean, I'm one of those people on the first date. I was like, do you believe in God? Are you a conservative? I mean, I wanted to let's just get this out there. Do you have a prepaid cell phone? If you don't talk to me, because that means you have bad credit. And then someday if we want to buy a house together and you have bad credit, I'm not gonna co-sign for your ass. Like, you have to pull your weight. So anyways, you know, I was a nightmare to date, but thankfully, you know, I found someone. But anyways, I digress. All right, Kenny, you do some pretty interesting photography, and I know that people on the line here very well may enjoy these few images that we are going to share. Go ahead, Juan. Might be stuck on that image. I love this. This one's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, that was done in Texas. This is the
I wonder I like it.
Texas Cavalry Airborne 174th Airborne.
You know what? The gentleman without the hat on. Sorry, I'm sure they're not called hats. But anyways, something about him really stands out to me. Like, it's like that. He really drives an emotion. I know that sounds.
You mean
cheesy.
the guy on the knee, without the helmet on?
Yes. Helmet. Thank you. Yeah, the one without the helmet on. Yeah. I feel like he's driving.
Yeah, when I'm out in a scene, I try to have that photographer eye and, like, you know, what am I trying to tell here? You know, what's the story here? And when I saw him, and it's something like, in photographic terms, is pattern with a break. So if you see the pattern here is everyone is standing and they have a helmet, and then you have that sudden break of that one person down on a knee, you know, watching intently but doesn't have a helmet on, and that definitely breaks up that pattern and makes him the sole focus of that image. Actually, just a tiny little story there is part of the reason why he wasn't wearing a helmet is because he had just hurt himself doing this training, and he was he like hit his head, and so he was a little dazed, and they told him to, you know, just take it easy, take a knee, and take off your helmet, but still pay attention to the training, because he's what's called a paratrooper, a fellow paratrooper. So we jump out of planes, and so yeah, it's dangerous work, and you know, he ended up getting injured. And then actually on the jump itself, his parachute had a malfunction, and he ended up getting injured again. No serious damage or permanent damage, but yeah, his parachute didn't open up completely on the drop, and at the very last minute he pulled his reserve, and thankfully he didn't explode on impact. So
oh my goodness gracious. Oh, there we go. So okay, so you guys, this is and she's beautiful. Like, and I like that her gun matches her thong. I must say, I I did enjoy the matchiness there. And so okay, I need to know. I know you're a photographer and you photograph many different things, but I'd love to know how you got into what I would consider risque photography.
So the style is called boudoir. And it's essentially the process of dress and undress. And like the origins are like pinup, right? So like it originally started with like, you know, sexy pictures to send to your soldier. So originally it was like pinup, and then it kind of evolved with the times and stuff like that. You see that a lot in a wedding photography, like the day you're getting married and you have a whole team of people helping you get dressed into that, you know, very fancy dress. That's essentially boudoir, you know, the process of dressing or undressing. And it's supposed to be like a voyeuristic. So you're just in your moment, in your element, and you don't really interact with the camera necessarily. And I'd like to think that most of my work is me just capturing beautiful moments, and not necessarily staged or posed pictures. Sometimes, you know, the models need a little guidance, and they're like, you know, like the whole Anchorman. I don't know what to do with my hands, you know. But,
that would be me. That would be so awkward. Yeah. 3 weeks. But if you guys want to check out, let's give you a plug right now, because you have some great pictures. You have a ton of pictures on your page. Can you go ahead and just let everyone know what your Instagram handle is?
So my Instagram is my full name. So it's Kenny, Kenny, B for Brian, and then my last name, Pasten, Pasten. And then I also have a website, which is kpboudoir.com.
Awesome. Very cool. How long have you been doing boudoir? Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, technically it's boudoir, but nobody really says it like that here in America. It's a French word.
Right.
But I've been doing boudoir for, I want to say, around like mid 2017. Yeah, around mid 2017. I originally started doing photography in 2016, but I guess that's a whole nother story.
That's well. Would you like to dive into what got you started? Just a quick little.
Sure. Yeah, the little the origin story.
Yes, I love an origin.
Yeah. So I was active duty Army before, and when I came home to Los Angeles, it's a very liberal place, and people are not very military friendly, and it was pretty rough, to be quite honest. I had applied for different jobs, and nobody wanted to hire me. I kept going to a ton of different interviews, and it was because I would talk about my time in the military, because to that point it was like most of my adult experience was being in the Army, and so the interviewers would ask me, "Oh, what's it like to kill people? What's it like getting shot at? You know, what's it like getting blown up? You know, all the really stupid, inappropriate questions," and then they would never offer me a job. And I went to something like, you know, I think it was a year and a half of job hunting, and I just could not find a job. I became homeless, and I was living in my car.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it was pretty rough.
That
but
pisses me off that our veterans are treated this way. It's so wrong. Sorry for the interruption. Just lights me up.
No. Yeah, it's really sad. You know, in Los Angeles, we have such a problem with it. You know, we have over 70,000 homeless people, and you know, 70% of those homeless people are veterans, And that just goes to show that the system that, you know, the promises made on behalf of the country are not being held up. You know, they always say, if you take care of your country will take care of you. Well, it just was not my experience, and a lot of people feel the same way. Things got a little bit better under President Trump, but yeah, going back to that, I was homeless, and someone, you know, was like, hey, I know you really like animals. Would you watch my dog for me? And so I watched their dog. I took care of their dog while they went on a trip. I stayed at their house. I did pet sitting. And so that was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is a thing. And so I got into pet sitting. I started my own pet sitting company named Rexitron.com. That's REXITRON.com. And I started doing pet sitting, and you know, I did a whole bunch of pet sitting, and then I started doing dog walking, and then somebody was like, well, can you do doggy daycare? And I was like, I didn't want to say no, because you never want to say no to a client, but yeah, I was like, well, what do I do here? Because I don't have a house. I don't have a home to take this dog, you know, to do doggy daycare. So I came up with the ingenious idea of dog hikes. So I said, actually, what I'm doing instead of doggy daycare is I'm taking dogs on hikes. So I would take a whole pack of dogs. I would take something like 7 or 8 dogs on a hike throughout Los Angeles, and we'd spend the whole day. So we'd spend the whole day, which would be the same as doggy daycare. And while I was out there, yeah, and if you go back into my Instagram a couple years, you can see I used to wear a rock climbing harness, and I would attach all the dog leashes to the rock climbing harness instead of, you know, being like the dog walkers that you see with like 50 leashes and dogs in every direction. Yeah, I had them tied into my waist, and we'd go for a run or a hike up the mountain. And while I was doing that, I would do pictures. I started out taking pictures with my phone with the dogs, and I would like have them sit, and I'd have them up against a river or a waterfall, or sometimes with the smaller dogs, I would put them up in trees, and I would like totally pose them, and that's how I got into it is dog photography.
How
and then,
random.
Yeah, and then my ex-wife now, but current wife at the time, gifted me a camera for my birthday, and you know, I started learning on that, and I did a lot of YouTube videos and learned from there. But then actually how I got into you know, boudoir was because one of the pet sitting clients, they were like, oh, you know, my husband is going out of town. I know he misses me. He misses our puppy. You know, could you do some pictures of us for him? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, when I get done dropping off all the dogs, I'll come back and see you. Because I would actually go house to house, picking up all the dogs all over LA, and then driving up to the mountains, doing our hike, and then driving them all back. So it was an entire day experience. Yeah, lots of traffic.
That's like camp. That is camp.
Oh, yeah. So so I dropped all the dogs off, and I come back, and this lady, most of my clients were like extremely wealthy people, you know, in the LA area, and she had a Malibu house off the cliff, you know, like right above the ocean. It was an awesome house. Yeah. And so I go, I knock on the door, and to my surprise, she is standing there with just like lingerie on and like a silk robe, and I'm like, those kind of pictures. So
I can do this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, she you know, she was like, well, I want him to feel like he's here with us. You know, I would usually, you know, be in lingerie or just like some cute bra and panties when my husband gets home. So, you know, maybe take some pictures like that. And I was like, yeah, totally. You know, I was like, just turn on the TV and snuggle with your dog and like forget that I'm even here. And I just basically walked around the living room and, you know, followed them into the bedroom, and they laid in bed and they were like snuggling and kissing and stuff like that. And that's how I got into boudoir, was doing that. And then she recommended me to a couple of her friends, and they were like, oh, well, you know, I live in Malibu too, you know, can we do some swimsuit pictures? And, you know, I did that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. The word travels, and yeah, good for you. You are resourceful. That is amazing. Seriously.
I try.
I love that. I love that you turned like a downtrodden situation into like and you're an entrepreneur. Like, that's so cool that you were able to make something from so little, and you should just be really proud of yourself, because that is not easy. And you were thrown into different situations, and you know, you landed on top. So nice work, and your photography is really beautiful. And I love obviously the military ones are my favorite, because I just love the emotion that I feel in their faces. Even just like the man you were talking about earlier who had the head injury. I had no idea about that, but there was something just about just his face and his cheekbones and his jawline. It's like you could just feel something, and it was just really beautiful. So really nice work. That's
yeah, and that was like no editing, no like, because somebody was like, oh, it looks like you like highlighted that person or you like edited them. I was like, nah, man, that was Jesus, okay? Because that was a beam of light cutting through the clouds, hitting that one dude. Because I didn't do anything to that photo. Right.
Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. I really enjoyed that photo in particular, for sure. Well, that's a really great origin story. I did not expect that, but that is, you know, you just never know how someone's going to get started, and that's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's great.
Yeah, and those military pictures are actually my combat camera work.
Oh, right. And we'll touch on that first. I want to jump into something. This is when you and I first started communicating, and this is, you know, when let's say here it was in November following the election, and the story came out about the Dominion headquarters being in Denver, Colorado, and it was like an empty building, and you just straight up got in your truck and drove there. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what you discovered?
Yeah, so actually that started because I was on Instagram. I was back home in Los Angeles, and I saw somebody else's reporting on it, and they were talking about, you know, Dominion had just recently been bought out by a Chinese company, and somebody started looking into their LinkedIn and their Facebook and just, you know, doing a deep dive on the company itself and how it just didn't add up, and something was off about this whole situation. And they did a Google Maps search, and, you know, they were like, this is really weird. The company that's in charge of doing our national elections, just, it doesn't add up. You know what I mean? Like, every bank you go to has a huge sign that says Bank of America or Chase or whatever company they may be, but the nationwide provider for election tiny section of the building and not the entire building, that seemed really weird to him. And then, you know, I noticed that all he was doing was just going on Google Maps, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna test this out. Let's see if this is real or not, you know, because there is misinformation, you know, there's fake news. So I was like, well, I want to test this out. I want to see if this is real or this is fake news, because if this is real, this is a huge story. This is a big deal. So yeah, I was in Los Angeles, and as soon as I finished watching that video, I was like, this has to happen now. So I jumped in my car and I drove to Denver, Colorado that night. Yeah, I went and I did an Instagram live from the place, and it was a total fraud. You know, the building was empty. There was a for lease sign on it, so it had clearly been empty for a while. And I even called. There was a lease sign that said call here to make an appointment. And I actually called and I was like, hey, I'd like to set up an appointment to view this building. And yeah, I made an appointment with them. I didn't end up going, obviously, because I was like, that phone call told me everything I need to know. There's clearly nobody in this building. It's a total fraud.
God.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Insane.
And you know, that didn't make it to the mainstream media. I mean,
no.
Gosh, it's so disgusting.
Yeah, really sad, because I shared it out with a bunch of people.
I was following you so closely when you were doing that. I was like, oh, how fun. I love investigative work. And I was like, oh, I want to be able to jump in my car and go too. That would be so fun. But I remember I was doing a little legwork for you. I was looking on LinkedIn, trying to get that guy in that video's information. And because he was the one who had a little more detail, but I wasn't ever able to find him. But I thought that was
cool too, and it was such a huge bummer.
That's crazy. No, that's so crazy. But I love that you did that. So I mean, it does prove, because you're right, there is fake news, and obviously it's more left leaning, but once in a while we'll get some news feeds that aren't necessarily accurate. What time do we have here? 4:37. Okay. Oh, wow. Kenny, this has gone so fast. We only have 3 minutes left. Dang it. I was going to ask you about this porn star being kicked out of Charlie Kirk's,
well, let's talk about it. Brandy Love, because I was actually just talking to somebody earlier about it. And I think Charlie Kirk, in recent months, I think he's kind of lost. There was something else that he posted that I was like, this is total bull. He posted a video of this little boy left behind at the border, and they added subtitles, and it had nothing to do with what was actually happening. I'm like, what the hell, man? So I was upset with that. And then recently, this whole thing with the porn star Brandy Love coming out as a conservative, which, like you said, we have to be present. We have to let people know who we are and what we're about, and that we exist, you know?
Right.
So it's her First Amendment right. You know, what she does for work, that's her art. That's her business, right? And I feel the same pain, because I get so many conservatives that attack me for my work and give me grief and you know, call me names and actually attack me a lot more than leftists do. But that's, you know, like I said, that's her First Amendment right. She can say she's a conservative. She can believe in the Constitution, just like, you know, everyone else. And that's why I sort of, when I saw that, it struck a nerve with me, because I call myself a constitutional conservative, right? I'm not worried about who you pray to. I'm not worried about who you have sex with or what you identify with or whatever. What I care about is the oath that I swore to, which is to the Constitution, to defend the Constitution. You know?
Right. You know what? My husband came home this morning and he was like, did you hear about this? Like, what's up with this? I don't think that was cool. You know, and he's like, Charlie Kirk's a Christian, and we want to welcome all. And, you know, and I was like, let me look into this. So I looked into it, and I was digging into it this morning, and basically this event in particular, she bought VIP tickets. This event was angled towards very young high school and young college age. And part of TPUSA.
But they're all that way. All of those events are young Republicans.
Well, here's what I'll say though. In his rules and regulations, let's just say, for his events, it does say that they will not have somebody that does sexually explicit pictures and images on Instagram in affiliation with them. Now, she was tagging herself at his event, and a bunch of parents of minors grew concerned. Well, so you know what? To me, I don't buy that.
That's total horseshit.
I see both sides.
That was not there. That was not there before she got kicked out. And you know what? Charlie Kirk follows me. I've talked to him personally on Instagram. So that's BS. That's not true.
You should follow
Not
him on
not
the
that you're
carpet.
doing bad reporting, but I've talked to Charlie Kirk, and you see my content, so you can't tell me that you know what I mean. Like, that's so hypocritical and just covering their behind on the way after the fact. You know what I mean? So yeah,
totally
they were
get
dead
it.
wrong for doing that.
My conservative husband felt the same way you did. He didn't like it. I was more looking at the policy because that's kind of what I do for a living. And so I was like able to see it from the policy end. But I'm right there with you. We don't want to shut people out, and that's what the right has historically done, I would say. And that's why people that feel like they're on the outskirts, they go left because they feel accepted. I do see concern with that approach, but good. I'm glad we got to talk about
I hate that whole, Christian point of view, because, I'm a Christian, but I don't have any problem with that. The problem that I have is that, this Christian point of view is okay, we're going to accept it, but not this other one. So if you're saying you're a Christian organization, then why do you have gay people there? Why do you have trans people there? If you're so ultra Christian and you're, talking about the scriptures and, your beliefs, why was the porn star kicked out? But you have all of these gay headliners that are there and being like promoted by the organization. You know what I mean? Again, I don't care what sexuality you are, or who you sleep with, or who you choose to love. That's not my concern. But let's not be hypocritical. You know what I mean? If you're going to do it to this group, do it to all groups.
I completely see where you're coming from. Like I said, you're not alone. My own husband felt the exact same way, and we were going back and forth on it this morning, and I landed right in the middle. Like I can see it. I'm torn on the Brandy Love situation, Tobacco Man. I am too. I'm like, I don't want to be an ass and tell people because of that industry they can't be a conservative and be at these events. But then it's a tough one. But you're absolutely right. We need to be welcoming. We need to do better at that as a whole.
And it's a First Amendment right.
I agree. I agree with you on that. All right. We ran up on time. Juan gave me a few extra minutes because this was a hot topic, and that was fun. I'm glad we got to discuss this. Oh my gosh, Kenny, you were so fun. This has been a great segment. Thank you for coming on. I need to have you on again and dive deeper into some hot topics because I feel like we have.
I'm all about it.
All right, good. I look forward to banter again. And you have a great evening.
You too. See ya.
All right. Thank you. Bye. All right, guys. Thank you so much. That was fun. I'm glad we got to go in on the, I almost said Courtney Love, on the Brandy Love situation, because that just came out this morning, and I really wanted to dive into thoughts and opinions on that. It is a tough one for me. So anyways, after me, so last night, you guys, I have to tell you, I was up late. Pre-recording a show with a few friends. They pre-recorded, they usually go live. They pre-recorded with me so that they could have me on. My schedule was too busy this evening to go live again. But so please, right after me, we're going to have Reason Being, and I was their guest. And that was an interesting segment. I really enjoyed myself. 20 minutes. It's a short one. It goes fast. Please hang on. And then following Reason Being, we're going to have Counterculture Mom, that other new show. I believe this is the 3rd week in a row that she has aired. And after that, we have Loaded Mike. And also don't forget that we are in a partnership with MyPillow, with Mike Lindell. He's a raging patriot. Love the guy. The phone number is right there on the screen. Discount code RAM. You don't have to do it on the phone. You could do it on the website. Just remember to use that discount code for a good discount. And it tracks back to us, giving us the legitimacy we need as a news outlet. Thank you so much. I will see you next week.
Welcome to the show. We are Jacob and Daniel of Reason Being. Here with us today is KSok with Right America Media. You can find her show and where to follow her in the description below, or go to rightamericamedia.com. Today, we will be discussing the Biden administration's involvement with censoring misinformation regarding COVID on Facebook and other social media platforms.
Yeah, all right. So to break that down for you guys here, basically the last week or so, there's been a lot of public statements being made by the Biden administration, with Jen Psaki, the press secretary, as one of them, who has basically been saying, yeah, we've been in communication with Facebook, censoring people who we believe are spreading misinformation, whatever that means. In their interpretation, that just means anything that goes against their administration. But regardless, that's a big problem here. You know, in the last few years or so, we've basically been having the conversation of, should there be this much power given to these platforms that behave like public platforms, but then are private companies who censor people and are like publishers? And it's even worse now because basically it's big government and big corporations coming together and having a sleepover. So that is a big problem, and we're kind of just wanting to kind of give our thoughts on it and what this would mean moving forward during this administration and kind of what the implications are of it. So we'll go ahead and just hand it off to you here, and maybe if you have your own thoughts, you can go ahead and let us know, and we'll kind of let you know ours along the way.
Well, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. You know, with what you're talking about right now, it is so unconstitutional what they're doing. And the fact that Biden is referencing these mentions on Facebook as murderous, it's just absolutely asinine. And you know that Facebook recently started, they basically are pulling back on their monitoring of posts concerning the lab leak because, woo, lo and behold, seems to be true.
Yeah, that's that is the case. And like I said, misinformation, why I use air quotes, is because that can change from day to day. That's the problem. So, you know, who's making the decision? Who is the arbiter of truth? Supposedly Joe Biden and his lackeys. They think they are. But the problem is they have been wrong throughout the last year. And even if they were correct on everything, the problem is it's the principle of it. Why should we be giving these huge platforms that we didn't vote for, and then the government who we voted for using those platforms as a bludgeoning tool to basically attack the rights of citizens? Why should we be, you know, putting up with them using that as a bullying tool to us? And that's how it's being used, essentially. And I see a big problem with it.
Yeah, pretty much with COVID, this is the left kind of taking advantage, kind of using this narrative to pretty much whatever they want in regards to information, whatever they say is, you know, fake news. Kind of Trump is the one that set up the whole fake news thing, and they ran with it. They said, oh, this is perfect.
Like,
now we're going to say, this is fake news. This is fake news. We're going to control everything, what's being put out there. Now they're using COVID to their advantage to push out their narrative with this. And I think that this is something the left is really going nuts over right now.
Well, what you said, KSok, is that with Joe Biden, he was basically using all this you know, hysteria language to kind of frighten people. And that's the same from his press secretary, Jen Psaki. They're all basically just using this language of murder and violence and death to try to uphold their position and say, well, we're protecting people, therefore it's okay for us to impede on your rights. And then they would probably come up with the argument and say, oh, well, it's not your right to go onto these public platforms and talk. It's only your right to do it off of the internet. I have my own problems with that argument. But besides that, they're just using that to try to scare tactic people. And Joe Biden, he quoted when he was interviewed, he was, you know, leaving or getting onto a helicopter, something like that. They'll have the press get a quick few points out from him. And he said they're killing people in reference to Facebook when they were asking, you know, that if they're censoring certain pages enough. And he's saying, no, they're not. They're murdering people directly. I mean, if you want to talk about hyperbolic talk, and then, you know, the media was incessant about that nonstop for 4 years with Trump, but they're you know, lips closed as soon as Joe Biden's in office.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes so much farther than just Facebook, Instagram owned by Facebook. I mean, even T-Mobile, there is evidence out right now showing that T-Mobile is monitoring their customers' text messages and phone calls because there's voice sentiment reports. And a whistleblower actually shared that information. They wouldn't share who this information was going to. We all know it's the government, but that is happening right now. And so you feel like you're safe, like, hey, call me. Let's talk about this over the phone so there isn't text records. No, you're not even safe with the phone calls anymore. It's like we have to go throw our phone in the backyard to have a conversation in the front. And the other piece of it is it's also third-party chat features. Like, for instance, what do the kids use? I'm old, so I don't know. It's Snapchat, right? Snapchat, WhatsApp, all of that is being monitored. As of right now, I just know that T-Mobile has confirmed they are doing this, but this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and this is a quote by Jen Psaki as well. She stated this: "Our point is that there is information that is leading to people not taking the vaccine, and people are dying as a result. And we have responsibility as a public health matter to raise that issue. The responsibility we all have, the government, media platforms, public messengers, to give accurate information." Basically implying that from other individuals' opinions online, whether it's the Daily Wire, Blaze TV, even us, essentially, our opinion is so strong that others can't make their own decisions and decide whether or not to get the vaccine. It is essentially our fault, and we're the ones that are the murderers. That's kind of the way they're looking at this, pretty much.
Well,
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, bottom line is we should all have the freedom of choice. And I just read recently that not even communist China is going to force their people to get the vaccine or to have vaccine passports. Wow.
How ironic.
I mean, that's who we've been modeling after. The whole Biden administration's been modeling after the CCP, but they're not even going that extreme. That really sends a message.
Wow. When China is the shining beacon example, there's a little bit of a problem there.
I know.
I would agree with you.
But I think the problem here is, again, it's the principle of it is, yeah, people can say, okay, the argument, which we've talked about this already ourselves on multiple podcasts when it comes to essentially online now in terms of practicality and how the internet has evolved and changed how we communicate, especially during the lockdowns when people were basically just all stuck at home and the only way they could communicate was online. How it is nowadays is pretty much it's the public square. And in terms of how law should, understand, the internet and how we communicate with it, it should just be an extension of our speech. That would be my argument. But the problem here is that we're not just talking about, where are they going to stop, really? It's like, okay, they're communicating with Facebook, Twitter, all these guys who are basically, left-wing donors, a lot of them. They're just, right in bed with Congress on the left side of the aisle, because those guys are a lot of all anti-free speech, censorship kind of people. What would make them stop and say, okay, well, Facebook's the end or Twitter's the end? Why not just be like, okay, well, let's get in communication with payment processors, or let's get in communication with bank institutions or ones that process money and just say, well, if we think you're with some extremist group or you're spreading misinformation that could harm people or kill people, as Joe Biden says, then why should we let you use these online transferring services and send money to, I don't know, send it to your white supremacist friends? I guess that would be their idea. But, I mean, I'm sure those kind of crazy ideas happen and go on in their head. So what would stop them from doing that? If we're going to let them get away with this, why is that not the next step?
Well, it's already happened, actually. Let's just look back at what Bank of America did. They released customers' bank information to the government because they were looking for anyone that flew to Washington, D.C. and that made transactions or purchases in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. So we no longer can trust that our banking information is secure.
Yep, that's right. And here's what I'd say is that the hypocrisy is just emanating, but I think like a few years back even, weren't the Democrats kind of like the anti-big business, anti-establishment types? Maybe like they liked some big government because it could help like poor people or people in need, but they were like, oh, like big corporations bad. As long as their government lackeys are, in bed with those corporations, they seem totally fine with it. Right. There's no problem there. It's like, is there any problem that they think there is with, consolidated power or these kind of power vacuums with these groups being in collaboration with each other? I'm not seeing a lot of criticism coming out from the left wing, unfortunately. And it's pretty concerning. It seems like they're just kind of going further and further towards the left in recent years.
Yeah, kind of back to the vaccine, though. Here's kind of an interesting point that I was speaking with Daniel about earlier. During the Trump administration, they had plans to roll out the vaccine. So everything was going smooth. I mean, this is everything all part of the Trump administration leaning into the Biden administration, which they now take credit for. But remember when they stated that they don't trust the vaccine? They don't trust this under the Trump administration. Had Trump been reelected, what do you think the left's opinion of the vaccine would be now? The whole time they would be stating, we don't trust this. Why? Because it would essentially be a win for Trump.
They would have shut down pro-vaccine.
This would be totally different. Totally different, meaning this whole deal is political. This is about control. Most individuals that aren't even getting vaccinated are blacks and are Latinos, which statistically vote on the left side. So, they're not even getting the vaccination. So, yeah. Is this all just because of Trump followers or the right that are just not wanting to get the vaccination because of some big conspiracy? There's plenty on the right that have gotten vaccinated, but for instance, I've had COVID. I already know what it feels like. It wasn't bad. I don't want to get vaccinated. I've already had it. What's the point? Right?
I'm calling Joe Biden right now. Joe, come get this guy.
I'm killing myself. Exactly. That's what it is.
Well, it's just, you're absolutely right. We saw it on day one of the Biden administration. How many things, 16 different things that Trump had signed, executive orders. Yeah. 16 different executive orders were signed on day one, undoing all these wonderful things that the Trump administration had done successfully. It's anything we can do, anything they can do to go against Trump. Trump bad. Everything else good. And you're right. If Trump was in office right now, and because he's been rallying behind the vaccine and he's the reason it rolled out so quickly, of course they wouldn't be for it. It's propaganda. It's absolute propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thoughts there.
Yeah. I think it's just a problem with, just shifting the narrative given whoever's in power. So, whatever the government is doing at a given time, depending on who is the figurehead of the government, ease back on the criticism, push forward the criticism full force, just go nonstop on the, the criticism. And that's what we're seeing here. So it's in part a problem just of hypocrisy and them not putting the same standards to everybody. Of course, we know that. But then again, it's just how they're throwing their power around. Again, Jen Psaki, I don't know, I keep coming back to her. She just, she rubs me the wrong way. But she's, I don't know. Here's the one thing. I know like all the press secretaries, they're kind of condescending in their own ways because they're kind of coming into a den of wolves, especially
not for her. No,
that's what I'm getting at. Is that not with her, but most of the time, you had like Kayleigh McEnany. And I was like, I get it. She's kind of being a little defensive because there's a lot of people like pressing her real hard. But then with her, it's like she has one guy from Fox and he sits there and asks a question and she's like, how dare you? And she just, she puts up the wall and she gets really defensive. And, when he did ask that Fox commentator, journalist, I don't know his name exactly, but he asked that question of her. He was basically saying, is this not a Big Brother scenario where you are, putting your hands into corporations that have this much power, and we know you already collaborate with them, but now you're coming out and making it clear and trying to act as if it's some angelic decision of yours to go ahead and try to protect the public when it's the exact opposite. But he asked that, is this a Big Brother scenario? And she goes, well, they should be less concerned, these people, with it, a Big Brother scenario. They should be more concerned with people dying. And that's always what it is. It's, I mean, where does that ideology come from? She's saying it's okay to restrict rights, because she didn't ever argue and say, oh, Facebook is not free speech. She didn't say that. She's just saying, oh, well, what's more important is that people could potentially be harmed by these things indirectly through, you know, them listening to information online through their free will and then deciding to believe those things and then taking action accordingly. And if they die because of that, that's something that Big Brother needs to step in and stop. And we need to suppress your rights, whatever that may be, to stop that from happening. It doesn't matter. But that's exactly the opposite of what, if you were to ask a founding father what the idea of setting up the government and its checks and balances are, that's the exact reason why those were put into place, is to stop that kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to circle back, no pun intended, talking about Psaki here, but I want to circle back on something. If what we've been talking about doesn't drive home the fact that Democrats do not care about people, they only care about pushing their narrative, whatever that may be at whatever given time. They want to push their narrative, and they're darn good at it. And that's the thing. The Republican Party, conservative people, even independents, we need to get a lot better at driving our narrative, which our narrative obviously is quite different and it's truthful and good for people. But we need to get a lot better at doing that. But again, if this doesn't drive home the fact that Democrats, they don't give a care about, I'm not cursing to be on the show, they don't care about you. They only want your votes. And you're absolutely right. Minorities, they are not getting the vaccine. I have watched so many TikToks, so many YouTube videos where people in the African American community are like, no way. And they're being so heavily targeted. North Carolina, they're just out knocking on doors in a heavy Black community. That was one of the first where they're out door knocking, giving vaccines right at the doorsteps there. Why do you think they're going to these minority neighborhoods first? I mean, my thoughts wander on that. I think I know why, but I mean, it's just so appalling all around.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic because there's individuals in Congress that have been vaccinated that are getting COVID. So if this was really about saving lives, I mean, what's the point? I mean, they're not even tracking the numbers now. I'll share the article. They're not even tracking numbers now because individuals in Congress are getting COVID after getting vaccinated. So the hypocrisy and all of this is just ridiculous. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of share our opinion in regards to this with KSok. And KSok, we definitely appreciate you for coming on. Can you tell our audience where our followers can find you online and kind of more information on your show?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, and it's KSok, KSok.lower48. You can also find me on YouTube, which is KSok Uncensored. And you can find me on TikTok, KSok Uncensored, and then also ramtv.live. You'll see my picture, and that's where you can watch my show live on Thursdays at 4 Pacific.
By now, you've all heard of us talk about MyPillow and how great their pillows are. The pillows won't go flat, you can wash and dry them as many times as you want, and they maintain their shape. Plus, it's made in the USA. For a limited time, Mike is offering his premium MyPillows for his lowest price ever. You can get a queen-size premium MyPillow for only $29.98. Regularly, it is $69.98. That's $40 in savings. King pillows are only $5 more. So go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code RAM, R-A-M. You will also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products as well, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, and MyPillow towel sets. Again, use promo code RAM, R-A-M, or call 1-800-867-0416 and use promo code RAM.
Thank you for watching and listening to the show. You can follow us on all social media platforms at Reason Being Official, and for more information, you can go to reasonbeingofficial.com.
Hi, I'm Charles Sauer, president of the Market Institute Foundation and editor of U.S. Policy. Today, I want to talk to you about a sneaky tax that the left is trying to push through our Appropriations Committee. You see, various government services are funded by taxes. Others are funded by fees. Now, the idea behind a fee is that the government is providing a service to an individual, so the individual should pay for that service. An example of this is our patent system. Inventors pay a fee to the patent office, and in exchange for that fee, the office researches the idea, and if everything goes well, approves the patent. Fee paid, service provided. However, over the last several decades, despite some beneficial changes and even quality leadership over the last several years, a patent from the USPTO can still take years. In fact, patent application times have gotten 3 times longer than in the 70s. The office's IT system has gotten more and more outdated, and instead of Congress addressing these issues, they are now proposing this new inventor tax that won't do anything except exacerbate the problems and further make the service provided for a fee worse. We all know that the government isn't good at running a business. That is why the government should be as small as possible. But taking away resources from a flailing department seems like the type of poor decision that most politicians, even the most obtuse ones, should understand. However, as the House Appropriations Subcommittee responsible for funding the USPTO recently reminded us, we can never underestimate the obtuseness of our elected officials. The policy language that the subcommittee is currently considering includes language that allows for fee diversion away from the USPTO. In effect, this creates the tax on inventors. Normally, the USPTO has appropriated the amount of fees that they collect, but the language in the current bill only appropriates the fees spent. That means that not only are fees taken away, just like taxes are taken away, but that the USPTO has an incentive to spend excess funds not on long-term big change projects, but on short-run ad hoc projects that aren't likely to build the quality USPTO that our country has depended on as the backbone of our innovative economy. The incentives that exist inside of government agencies are already backwards and often run counter to the mission of the agency. But when a financial incentive is added to the mix, the incentives created can quickly create a boondoggle of unneeded and unnecessary programs while building and infrastructures of these offices crumble around them. Fortunately, almost everyone in power opposes this change, from members of the patent community to market players that have historically stood for weaker patent rights, like big tech companies that are more patent users than creators. The industry movers and shakers down to the garage inventors oppose this change, and some top politicians, even Senator Leahy, who aren't exactly considered supporters of America's innovators, have taken strong stands on the issue as well. Chairman Leahy took a strong stand against fee diversion when the American Innovation Act was passing. He has a release that says, as a senior member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, I will remain vigilant to ensure that language authorizing USPTO access to all of the fees it collects remains in each year's appropriations bill. While there will be plenty of places to stop this legislative language before passage, the easiest thing would be for Subcommittee Chairman Cartwright to just pull the language before the train leaves the station. This would put innovation in a better place today, support our innovation system into the future, and make it clear that a fee is a fee, and that if a fee is taken away, that is taxation. There are more reasons that can be listed why government spending for almost everything under the sun should be questioned, both philosophically and for specific issues like waste and abuse. But the patent system is one government agency that almost everyone supports. They support them not just letting them keep their fees, but they might even support additional funding if that led to a more efficient agency. I'm Charlie Sauer. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have any other issues that you think we should talk about, please leave a comment below. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Tina Griffin. I'm back, host of Counterculture Mom Show. We have an awesome guest for you today. I cannot wait to chat with him. We both have 4 young children we're trying to raise in this fatherless culture. Welcome, Jerrad Lopes. How you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming. Now, you are the founder of the Dad Tired Ministry. Is there a Mom Tired Ministry out there? If not, we need to have someone start that one too.
That's funny that you say that, because literally we started Dad Tired like 5 years ago, or Mom Tired like 5 years ago in conjunction with Dad Tired.
Okay.
And my wife's like, I've got too many young kids to try to do this.
She was
we
too
can't do this right.
tired.
Yeah,
Too
she was way
tired.
too tired. Yeah.
Too tired to run Mom Tired.
But funny enough, nobody's literally ever asked me that for the last 5 years. But last night we talked about bringing that back. That was the first conversation we've had about it in 5 years. So.
Well, maybe that's confirmation. I'm going to hope you get 2 more people that confirm that for you this week. Well, I want to definitely let our listeners and audience here know who you are, because you are a fantastic dad, and I didn't even have a chance to get to know you yet, but I could tell that you really care deeply about the fatherless state of our culture and being the best dad you can be. Now, Jerrad Lopes is a Christian author, speaker, and founder of Dad Tired, a nonprofit ministry focused on equipping men to lead their family well. Woo, woo. He hosts the weekly Dad Tired podcast, downloaded over 3 million times. That's amazing. By men from around the globe. He and his wife, Layla, live in Portland, Oregon with their 4 young children. Now, Jerrad, right out of the gate, I have to ask you, you have 4 kids. How old are they?
10, 8, 2, and 3 months.
Okay. That's...
Yeah, I got bags under my eyes and gray hair. Yeah.
Okay, the youngest just literally jumped out of the oven. So that's fantastic. We had 4 in 4 years. So we kind of overlap a little bit, So you guys probably are definitely due for a date night,
That is right. That's
okay.
right.
If you didn't live in Portland, I'd be able to help you out with that. But hopefully someone tuning in Portland right now that wants to look for a babysitting job can make that happen.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, diving right in. So to start this out, I think the biggest thing in today's culture with our fatherlessness that we can see with dads not even being in the home present, and the dads that are in the home might not be fully alive and awake with their kids, or they're working a job 24/7. Now with COVID, even more stress with that. What do you think are the biggest things that stop men from actually leading well?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think one, I always say there's kind of 2 primary things that stop a dad from really engaging his family. One is just ignorance. So if there might be a guy who's got a story like mine where their dad left and they had no example of what it looks like to be the spiritual leader of their home. So my dad left when I was 3. So I just didn't, and I grew up with all sisters. So no men around to teach me what does it look like to be a man and to be a man of God who's leading his family. No concept of what that looked like growing up.
Wow.
So there's guys like that out there who's they're trying to stumble their way forward and figure it out, but they don't know even where to begin because nobody taught them. So ignorance would be one. But I actually think there's a bigger category, and it's actually the category of shame. And I think a lot of guys struggle with shame. And so the thought of like, I'm way too messed up. I've got my own junk. I've got my own stuff that I'm trying to deal with, and stuff that I've done in my past, maybe things that I'm currently dealing with that are messing me up and entangling me. So I don't even know where my own relationship with the Lord is. How in the world am I going to lead my family towards a God that I don't even know personally if I feel close to him right now? And oftentimes that's rooted in their own shame. So I think those are kind of the 2 primary factors what stop a guy from leading well.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was the situation when you were 3 and your dad left your home?
Yeah, so my mom and dad never were married. And they had my sister who's 5 years older than me. And I think the relationship was rocky. Then they had me. My dad tried to stick around. My dad's a professional musician, so he was out doing his own thing. And I think my mom just got tired of him kind of being in and out and not fully committed. And they decided this isn't going to work out. And so he left, and my mom said, please don't show up that much. I don't think you're helpful in this. And so that left me as a kid not having dad around.
So with a lot of homes like that in America where you don't have the dad around, and yet you are having a ministry encouraging, equipping dads, which I think is fantastic. You took a traumatic experience of not having what God had designed in the home and said, I'm going to do my darndest to do a 180 so it stops that generational curse for my future family, which I just think is phenomenal that you did that. What could you tell other single moms in the home right now raising their kids that don't have a dad present, that are raising a son so they can turn out just like you?
Well, I don't know if I want them to turn out just like me, but I do think that God doesn't need to have the dad around in order to save your kids. God's design is that mom and dad would raise kids. That's his design. That's best, right? That's the way he intends things to be. But we know that we live in a fallen and broken world, and that we don't always get to experience God's best in the way that he designed things to be because of our own sin, the sin of others, the sin in the world. And so we don't always get to experience God's best. But God does not punish us and say, well, you stepped outside of my design, so you're on your own. Best of luck to you. What he does is give tons of grace. And he said, and we see this, I'm not just giving fluffy talk, by the way. This is God's reputation from Genesis to Revelation. What God does is say, okay, I see your mess. And instead of bailing, instead of leaving you in your mess, I'm going to make all things new and restore all things back to the way they were supposed to be. And so if you're a single mom raising a son or daughter, it would be best if dad was around, for sure. But God can still save your children. Even the fact that you would want your kids to be saved, even the fact that you would want your kids to love Jesus and to know the Lord and to trust him, is evidence that God is already pursuing their hearts. God put your kids with a mom who wants them to know him, which means God's already pursuing him. That's evidence. So just rest. Like God could use the rocks and trees to cry out, and God can use the rocks and trees to worship him. God can use rocks and trees to save your kids. He can use whatever he wants. He can use moms and dads and sometimes coaches and teachers, and he can use whatever he wants. So just know that your kids are safe in the Father's love, and that he's already obviously pursuing them. The fact that you're even listening to this interview right now is evidence that God is already chasing your kids' hearts down. So just rest in that.
Hey, that's absolutely excellent. And of course, it goes into the next question. Dad tired. Now, the obvious, dad tired. But can you tell me, how did that whole ministry start? And how did you come up with the name? Like, give us a little history of that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing you said was that, my goal was to take what had my own experience and kind of shift it and to be a dad that I never had, and to lead men in ways that I didn't personally experience. I wish that I could say it was that noble. It actually wasn't. I went through a really, really rough patch in my own marriage, to the point where I actually thought we were going to get a divorce. And I had already kind of started to play out logistically what that would look like. We had 2 young kids at the time. We were in a really, really dark spot. And I had been a pastor for over a decade at that point, and just was far from God, far from my wife, far from my kids. And we were in the middle of a fight one day, which was pretty normal for us during this time. And I said something on purpose to hurt my wife. That's in my own immaturity and stupidity. I said something to be hurtful to her. And she got tears in her eyes. And again, in my own stupidity, I thought, oh, I'm winning this argument. I'm up. And my wife looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, Jerrad, I just want you to know that I have been waking up at 2 a.m. every morning. I set my alarm, and I go into the living room, and I've been praying that God would capture your heart again. And I always say I would have rather she cussed me out. I was ready to fight. I was ready to duke it out. But she told me she had been waking up in the middle of the night to pray for me, to pray for my heart. Because what my wife knew was I can't change Jerrad's heart. I can nag him. I can try to get on him for his behavior. I can tell him he needs to step up and man up and all this stuff. But ultimately what Jerrad needs is heart change. And the only one who can change hearts is Jesus. And so she went to the heart changer and she prayed. And I really believe that was the start of God softening my heart and turning my heart back to him. He was answering her prayers. And so I started to process all that. I started to, as a good millennial, put my feelings on social media and say, I feel like I'm not doing well as a husband and dad, but I don't want to be. I had no audience, by the way. Nobody was listening to me. It was just friends and family. that I was basically saying, you know, I want to figure this thing out. I don't want to give my kids the story that was my story. And people resonated with that. And that grew from, you know, people reading my Facebook to what it is now. And I always say God tricked me back into ministry. I never wanted to be in ministry again. I was burned out. And by God's grace, he brought me back into it. And it's much bigger than I ever imagined it would be.
That's fantastic. So I have 2 quick questions I didn't expect to ask. What did you say when your wife said, I've been getting up at 2 a.m. praying that God would soften your heart?
You know, I don't remember what my exact words were, but I remember thinking, I don't know what to do right now. Because in my thought, when we were in the middle of the fight, I thought I was going to say something hurtful, slam the door and leave. But she said that, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember thinking, oh man, this is humbling. I do remember also within days after that, calling a counselor and saying, I think I need to go to counseling, which for a man is hard. I'd never been to counseling before, but it was a wake up call for me. Like, I need somebody who's going to look at my life objectively and help me figure out the mess I'm in. And that was really helpful. Yeah.
What was awesome is that you recognized you were in a mess and wanted something different for your kids, because there's a lot of dads today that, and moms that are too prideful to say that they've got the problem, and they point the finger the opposite direction. So the fact that you grabbed a hold of that, look at how God used that and blessed you with the ministry where now you're helping thousands and thousands of other parents out that are also now no longer too prideful to say they've got a problem. We have to address this. And at the same time, it's letting our kids know that we're not perfect. We're not perfect. We're going to mess up. And look at the journey God had us on. Marriages usually are not perfect. If they're perfect, they're probably boring, honestly. So it's awesome you're doing what you're doing. So Dad Tired started. Great name, by the way. I was laughing. I'm glad you're getting Mom Started back in the mix. You tell your wife if she needs any help. What are your thoughts on family time devotions? Now, we have them here at the house. We don't have them consistently. Shame on us. I'll probably give us like a B- on that. What can you tell other families about the importance of having family time devotions?
Well, this is probably one of the most common questions I get asked, because guys, you know, kind of want to step up to the call of being the spiritual leader of their home. So the next question is, well, what devotional do I use to talk to my kids about Jesus? That's great. I'm excited that guys are doing that. But I would say we can actually do something that's really dangerous when we think through spiritual leadership in terms of family devotional. And here's what would happen. If my time of talking to my kids about Jesus is limited to 15 minutes before bed or in the evening or in the morning, what can happen is my kids will start to compartmentalize their relationship with Jesus. And they will see a dad or a mom who thinks, okay, now we're talking about God. This is our God time. And then we move on to the grocery store and work time. But what they'll start to differentiate is, oh, God, Daddy's just wearing his God hat right now. But he's going to take that off, and then he'll be the discipline hat, or he'll be the worker hat, or you know, the fantasy football or watch a baseball, whatever hat, right? And they'll see us compartmentalizing our faith. Instead, what I tell guys is, you study the word, especially with really little ones. You study the word, allow the word of God to penetrate your heart, to do what the word of God promised it would do, sharpen you, convict you, show his grace, show his mercy, all the things that he's going to do, reveal himself, and then use every single opportunity possible to talk to your kids about Jesus. So think less in terms of 15-minute devotionals and more in how many 15-second devotionals throughout the day can I use. What I want guys to do is really think through 15-second devotionals and less about 15-minute devotionals. And this is going to teach your kids, like, oh, God is important to Dad when we're at the baseball game. God's important to Dad when we're at the grocery store and when we're filling up gas, or when he's talking to Mommy. And really, this is what Jesus did, right? Like, Jesus didn't say, I'm going to disciple you, so meet me every Tuesday at Starbucks and we'll read the Torah for 15 minutes. What Jesus was doing is saying, come follow me. And then he used every single opportunity possible to talk to his disciples about Jesus. We're walking in the field, we're talking, we're seeing this guy, like every opportunity we're talking about the kingdom. And so that's what discipleship, I think, looks like, and devotional should look like for a dad.
So I changed my B- to now like a C- because we hear about that throughout our Christian walk. It's 24/7, putting Jesus first, then your spouse, then your children, then your ministry. And I just talked about in the last segment. But the problem is, you're exactly right. I never thought about it that way before, where if we just do the family devotion and, oh, we missed it, then kids are not realizing that we put Jesus first throughout the entire day. That was so well said. Thank you for opening my eyes to that. And I know a lot of parents tuning in right now are thinking, yep, do the same thing. So the devotional is important, but it's not the end all be all. Okay, so you talk about Christian men being bored. That is a very, very good statement there. Why do you say that? Why do you think Christian men are bored? And how can we not have Christian men that are not excited about being a Christian father?
Yeah, well, here's what I mean by that. I think that intrinsically as humans, we long for adventure, but I think this is especially true for men. There's kind of this warrior mentality in us intrinsically that wants to conquer some stuff, that wants our adrenaline to get up. I mean, we could make all kinds of arguments here, but just watch little boys, right? And you just see it. And I'll sit out my window, look out my window here and see my son and his friends. They got sticks and swords and they're jumping off ramps. And I mean, they long for adventure. And I'm convinced that never goes away. Their longing for adventure never goes away. But what happens is we tame men and we tell them to become quiet, productive, members of society. And you kind of tame down that adventure warrior spirit. And so what happens is a guy has now a job and a wife and some kids, and he's behaving well. He's doing everything that society is telling him to do. And what happens is you have guys who end up really, really bored. Their souls are craving to be part of something that scares them, that they can conquer something, to move into something that's beyond their own abilities. And yet there's no outlet for that. And so oftentimes these men who are bored turn into bored, dangerous men. Bored men are dangerous men. And they look for adventure in really dumb places, frankly. So it could be something as silly as, this is why you see stadiums full of grown men who have their shirts off and they've spray painted their chest and their face and they're screaming at these 20-year-olds to play a game. Or that
brings back the Green Bay Packers. That brings back scenes here in my childhood. That's true.
Yeah.
What are some other dumb ways that men, besides that, are spending their time?
So that would be an innocent one, right? It's kind of harmless, right? Guys are cheering for football teams or getting into cars or hobbies or whatever. But we all know that there are other things that guys are turning to for adventure: pornography, alcohol, drugs, an affair, something that would get their heart rate up a little bit. And so, man, what I would say is your longing for adventure is actually God-given. But you're channeling it towards the things of the enemy or just own selfish desires. And what would it look like for you as a man to say, God, I want to be scared for your glory. God, what are you calling me into as a man that's beyond me? Listen, all throughout the scripture, God is saying, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. And you know why? Because he's always calling men and women into really scary things that are beyond them. And so if you're not scared for the glory of God right now, you're probably missing something that he wants you to do.
Hey, that's a lot better, positive way to say what I sometimes say from stage when I'm speaking. I'm like, if you're not being persecuted, big tech censorship isn't taking you down. If you're not being sued, you're not doing what God's called you to do. I like your take. It's more positive than what I share. That's so true. So with that said, what are some really neat things that you do with your kids? I know you said you have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, somewhere in between, and then a 2-month-old. Where do you take them for adventure? What do you do with dad and young kids?
Yeah. So here's practically what that looks like when we think through adventure in our family. There's some smaller adventures and there's some bigger adventures. Some of the big adventures, like we as a family, we sat down, we do family meetings, and we talked about what would it look like for God to use us in big ways for things that scared us. And in a long season of our family, that was actually foster care. And so we invited kids who didn't have moms and dads to come live with us and to be loved on and to experience the goodness of Jesus in our home. And that is scary and hard and beyond us. But we felt like we were being used by God in really big ways during that season. Now we just moved to a new town. When we moved here, we sat down as a family and said, what does it look like for us to see ourselves on missionary, that God would actually send us here to this neighborhood to be used by him. And so everyone we meet, whether it's somebody at the grocery store or it's a neighbor or it's a friend on a soccer team, God is intentionally leading us into these relationships so that we can show them a little glimpse of what God is like. And so my kids know when they share their bike with a friend, they are being used by God to give the world around them a glimpse of his kingdom. And honestly, I'll tell you, the adventure, it's fun. Like, we've had some really healthy, exciting conversations with people who don't know Jesus in our house, even in the 1 year that we've lived here in this new town. But it's also exhausting. It's easier to just like shut your door and to watch TV and to watch Netflix, and do whatever you want to do. Now we have kids in our house all the time, and they're eating. We just made a big Costco run. I think all of the stuff that we just bought at Costco yesterday is gone.
And
I just thought
eating it either.
Exactly. I just thought to myself, man, that was expensive and kind of annoying. But you know what? When those conversations come about, and I have a conversation with a boy who doesn't have a dad, it was worth every Costco run. It was worth the house being messy. It was worth the floor getting messy. And you just think, man, this is the kind of kingdom adventure that I think God's calling us to. So
absolutely. And we're not missing it. And a lot of times the enemy puts entertainment, which isn't even entertainment anymore, with what's pumping out on Netflix and everything else you mentioned. People miss out on the adventure that you're talking about because they don't even realize what they're missing out on. But the second they get a taste of it, they're on fire for it. I took the kids to Planned Parenthood the other day, and we helped pray with about 200 other people, and 2 babies were saved. I would rather have done
Praise
that,
God.
than sitting at home watching a bunch of today's cartoons. So I totally hear you on that. You know what you need to do is is there a place to donate on your website? Oh yeah, there is. I just saw a link. I'm going to have you explain your website here in a minute. People can just donate towards your Costco runs. Have a special little sidebar that people can, give to help you help other people. It's so cool. Okay, so we talk about Christian men being bored. We got that down. Now there's no excuse for that anymore. Dads tuning in here. You probably have a bunch of ideas. I always tell people, if you get ideas, usually when I'm not near a phone to write it down, like some pen, a pen handy, and write down your ideas, because usually when God gives us 2 or 3 things we can do for a neighbor down the street or a family member, he'll give us 50. So there's a lot of things we can do, especially summertime, getting outside and people are done with being, bunkered down in their home. What would you say to the tired mom or dad listening today?
Well, I think most of first I want to say this, there's a difference between having a tired soul and a tired body. All of us are tired. College students are tired. High school students are tired. Moms and dads are tired. My 90-year-old grandma's tired. Everybody's tired, right? So tired bodies are normal and it's kind of part of the game. But a tired soul, a weary soul, is an indication there's something going on under the hood that's not right, not the way God's designed it to be. And so if your soul is tired, I would just have you ask yourself why. Do a self-assessment. What am I allowing into my life that's causing me to feel tired? There's a verse in Psalm that talks about the man who plants himself, the man who's near the Lord is like a tree planted near living water, and everything he's doing is prospering. Some guys and moms feel like they're a tree that's withering and dying, not a tree that's flourishing and has a ton of fruit. And so you have to ask yourself, how am I spending time with the Lord? What else am I allowing into my life that's draining me and sucking my energy and my soul, causing my soul to be weary? So that would be the first thing I'd say, like the difference between a tired body and a tired soul. And the other thing I would say for the man who's dealing with shame, because that'll cause you to be real tired when you're buried in your own shame. And for the guy who feels like I can't really lead my family because I'm not close to God. Well, if you feel that on any level, you are not thinking about the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible, from the first pages to the last pages, is always using broken and messy people for his kingdom. And so when you experience that God, he can use you, and he wants to use you for his glory, to lead your wife well, to love her well, to love your kids well, to love your neighborhood well and your workplace well. And God will allow you to do that, but you have to stop worshiping the wrong God. Every other God and every other religion will tell you need to get your act together. The God of the Bible says, I love you in the middle of your mess, and I'm going to take your mess and make it new. And so just come back to the God of the Bible.
You are absolutely fantastic. And with the last 30 seconds I've got, because I could talk to you for another 3 hours, people have to go check out your leadership program, your family leadership program on your website. Your website is dadtired.com. Once again, dadtired.com. Go check it out. Jerrad, it was such a pleasure to have you on this program. And I will make sure that everybody checks out the show notes around this show. Share it with your family and friends. This is Counterculture Mom, Tina Griffin signing off. Download our Counterculture Mom app and get premium. Jerrad, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Trump sues big tech, Neiman Marcus gets looted, and Joe Biden shows up at your door with a vaccination needle. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wos.
You're listening to The Loaded Mic.
4th of July weekend always brings a lot of activity in Democrat-run cities. So this 4th of July weekend, Lori Lightfoot's Chicago was particularly festive. I know what you're thinking. Fireworks displays, cookouts, block parties, people dancing in the streets and celebrating Independence Day. Well, if that's what you're thinking, you're wrong. 4th of July weekend in Chicago was extremely active because people were killing each other. This 4th of July weekend, 2021, 18 people were murdered, 100 people were shot. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could that be? With all the gun restrictions in Chicago, that's impossible. Well, there are a lot of gun restrictions in Chicago. There's a background check system. They have a so-called assault weapons ban. There's an extended waiting period to purchase a firearm. And they even have red flag laws where people or where police authorities can go to your house and confiscate your guns without due process or just cause. The only way they can confiscate your guns from your home is if they know where guns are. And in other words, the only guns they know of are the good people who choose to purchase their firearms legally and are forced to register them with the government. So how do all these murders happen? Well, I think it's pretty clear. The bad guys, the gang members, and those who don't value life also pay no attention to the gun laws in Chicago. So what does Lori Lightfoot choose to do as a solution to these maniacs who don't follow gun laws and kill people? Well, more gun restrictions, of course, because we see how well that works. The truth is, gun restrictions do not work to stop killers. If a killer is willing to take a life in cold blood, do you really think they will obey the law and get a background check, for instance, before acquiring a firearm? Well, the answer is no. And Lori Lightfoot knows this. So we have to ask ourselves, what are Democrats doing to actually stop human violence? The answer is nothing, but they do use the human violence that they perpetuate to push for more gun regulations on good people. They make good people vulnerable and do nothing to stop the bad guys. So the real question is, why? How is it that they can see the violence in their own cities and see that gun restrictions do nothing to stop violence? As a matter of fact, the gun restrictions enhance the violence because good people are rendered unarmed and helpless. And how is it that they can continue to do nothing to solve the problem of human violence? That's what we're going to talk about today on The Loaded Mic. And I'm here with John Chiara.
Hey, Dan.
And so I wanted to see what your thoughts are on Lori Lightfoot and her her idea that more gun restrictions are going to solve the problem of Chicago murders. And I mean, because the thing is, look, here's the thing. As Joe Biden would say, here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
When you take guns away from good people, and not necessarily take them away, but if you make them hard to get, the people in these cities like Chicago are not going to be able to defend themselves. And 100 shootings in Chicago over 4th of July weekend.
Right.
What is this, Afghanistan?
Maybe they should hand out fireworks. You probably can't buy fireworks in Chicago, I'm assuming, right? Probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe they should
shoot each other with bottle rockets? It would be safer, I guess. Maybe just put an eye out.
Sparklers.
I'm going to get you with my sparkler. So, but, you know, it just goes back to that typical anti-gun ideology. I honestly think from watching, you can't listen to what they say because they'll say one thing but do another thing. But from watching their behavior, typically Democrat governors in these cities like Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, you name it, they say that they want to stop violence, but they do nothing to stop. Now, you think after all this length of time that they would have figured out, well, geez, these gun restrictions aren't working to stop the bad guys because the bad guys are paying no attention to it.
Exactly.
And we're making good people unable to defend themselves. So I always look at it like, initially I would thought, well, they haven't figured it out yet. They're still working on it. But this has been going on for decades, and they're not stupid people. There's an agenda here. My thought is that they like the high numbers, the high murder rates, because it gives them more fuel to push for more gun restrictions. If they can keep the blame on the guns,
right,
they can use every single death that they cause to push for more gun restrictions. And it's just a cycle. They see it happening.
Well, that happens in all parts of politics for so many on the left. It's like they don't really want to fix anything because the problem is what they need. Like Black Lives Matter. They pretty much admit that. We don't want to solve the problem. We need this as an issue. We need this issue to stay alive because that's what gives us
validity.
It gives us a platform to talk to people that people have accepted as being important.
Yeah, so think about that. What if it was impossible to fool the people that there's this so-called systemic racism anymore? Mm-hmm. What if people just, every time they heard it, they laughed at it because they knew it was ridiculous? And people, black people, white people, just got together and said, you know what, screw this. We're not going to pay attention to the division. We're not going to let it divide us. And what if all of a sudden Democrats didn't have that issue?
Right.
Then what?
They would have nothing.
They would have nothing.
Well, see, part of the one theory on how to work against these things is to take the side of these people and play it out to the most extreme outcome. Like, say, talking about critical race theory or something. Okay, I love critical race theory. We should have more of it. Let's teach our kids critical race theory. And more importantly, if we want that to be complete, let's take all the information that we're teaching the kids and give all that information to parents. Then everybody will know all about critical race theory.
Oh, but they don't do that.
But they won't do that because that would short circuit the whole control issue that we're talking about. They need that for their power because they need to have that stuff over there that we can never quite get to, that we have to keep as the boogeyman. You know, it's got to be. We have to deal with this stuff because it's very important. Gun violence, racism, white supremacy.
And once the parents know, we see what's happening across the country. Parents are going to their school board meetings, and they're pissed.
Thank God. That's what they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up, everybody.
Yeah, that woman, Tatiana, I forget what state she was in. She Jersey? I don't know. I forget where she was, but she really laid into the school board. And it's true. I mean, more parents are doing that now, and more groups of parents are getting together to go up against their school board. I don't understand these people on these school boards, where do they get the arrogance to think that they can talk down to the parents,
right,
and teach those people's kids whatever they want? the arrogance has just become so over the top. I don't understand. Do they not recognize that it's not their place?
Well, maybe they haven't gotten enough pushback, which is why what we're talking about is important. Because if you have enough parents in your school district that are expecting the school to just do everything for the kids because they can't or they won't or they don't know how, and they're just accepting whatever the school says is true.
Yeah.
You know, they're not looking into it. They're not paying attention to what the kids are being taught. And if the school decides not to let the parents see what the kids are being taught, it's kind of a conspiracy in a way, you know. It's like, let's brainwash all these little kids and not let their parents know what's going on.
What kind of person has to have pushback to do the right thing?
What? I don't know.
And how do these people, I mean, you know what's good and bad, what helps the kids and what doesn't. You know, you have to be some kind of high-level moron to believe that dividing people again, we already went through this decades ago, dividing people again by skin color is going to somehow be a good thing. You really have to be stupid. I can't think of another word. You really have to be either stupid or understand exactly what you're doing and understand that you're doing it for a higher political agenda.
Right. And I think some people understand that. And I think maybe enough people are not speaking up so that just permeates the whole system until we get to where we are now, where some parents are finally saying, well, this is not right. I'm gonna push back. But I think, you know, I mean, well, parents have things going on in their world, you know. I mean, I assume that many parents don't put a high priority on. We're going to pay really close attention to what our kids are doing in school. I want to know exactly what they're learning every day. Bring all your work home. Let me see what you're doing. I'm assuming a lot of parents aren't in a position to do that.
Well, and for so long, you didn't have to.
Right. Or so we thought anyway.
Right.
But for the last 30, 40 years, that's been seeping down from the universities and all this postmodernism stuff that people just assume is the right way to go. And now we're finding out that, well, again, and like you said, I mean, I hate to say people are stupid, but most people don't have any idea how to analyze any kind of data. This isn't working. Okay, what do? Double down, do more of it. Well, this isn't working now. What do? Double down, do. And the gun restrictions are a perfect example of that. If all the gun laws that we've put into place for the last 50 years worked, why are we still complaining about stuff? Or are the situations bad enough where we should be complaining about it? Or are there other ways to go about it so we can fix these things? Because I don't know about you, but I would love to see a problem or two fixed. Wouldn't that be great? We could fix immigration and we could fix, you know, all these shootings and stuff. That would be great.
Well,
I don't see. I think we can too, but not by doing what we're doing.
And it's so frustrating because what we call, you and I are sitting here talking about this stuff, what we call a fix is not a fix to the political left. It's a roadblock to them because their agenda is different. So in other words, okay, so for gun restrictions, we talk about gun restrictions. So what you and I say, okay, we see all this violence, you know, in New York, let's say, for instance, and I can get to this Cuomo deal, but let's say Albany, New York, we see all this violence, and we see a portion of it where guns are being used to commit it.
Right.
So rather than look at the actual cause of why people are doing this, we talked about this on the show yesterday, and we can get back into some of that stuff, or not yesterday, last week. What's the cause? And we talked about, you know, gang violence. We talked about the welfare system and all this stuff.
Right.
We could fix the problem. If the problem is people killing each other, human violence, we can solve that problem, or we can at least fix it and make it better.
Right.
To us, that's the problem.
Because we define that as the problem.
We define that as the problem. But to them, that's not the problem. The real problem is too many American citizens have guns, and that affects their political positioning.
Right.
It affects their political leverage. So what we see. Go ahead, comment on that, because that's
I know where you're going. Well, I often ask when I hear all these, there's been 4 shootings in Albany last week. Really? Were they legal guns? Legal gun owners? Who shot these people? Let's see the names. Come on. Give us the serial numbers of those guns. Let's see who owns that baby.
Well, and that's another thing. You know, there's a local city here, and I won't say what city, in New York, who just, because I'm going to do something about this. I'm working on this with. So I don't want to say anything, but there was a local city here in New York who had just, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but they just declared that they're solving this so-called gun violence, and and the proof is that they found a ghost gun. So I'm going to be in the near future here, I'm going to be working on ghost guns and the narrative around ghost guns and how there's no such thing as ghost guns. But they use this term, ghost gun. They created the term because...
And what does that mean?
Well, they're calling guns that are untraceable. They don't have a serial number. Maybe they're homemade. Maybe they're...
So illegal guns.
Yeah,
technically.
Illegal. So they want people to think, hey, we're doing something. We're helping you. We're stopping this so-called gun violence, and we found a ghost gun. All that is a gun that's not serial numbered. It's not attached to some government registry or list. That's, frankly, the way it should be. The government has no business knowing what guns I have, and knowing the serial numbers, knowing my personal information, knowing where those guns are because they know where I live. The government has no business. In 1791, when the first 10 amendments were ratified.
Back in the day.
There were no serial numbers. No government registries. How did we get to the place where cops are now saying, we found a ghost gun, and people are going, yeah, get those ghost guns. It's so ridiculous, and I have so much more to say on this topic, but I won't say it today. I'm working on an article, so I'm really piecing this article.
Sounds like a pretty good rabbit hole there to go down, like ghosts.
But anyway, I forget what brought me to that, but the problem is they're not solving the problem, the real problem. They're trying to solve their problem.
Well, see, because they think it's a gun problem, they automatically go where there's a lot of guns, right? Which are legal gun owners. But that's not logical. If those guns aren't causing any problems, then it's obviously not the guns, right?
Right.
Obviously. Statistically, it's not the guns. Impossible to say that.
And let me chunk that down a little bit. You said because they think the problem is guns. And the word think is critical here because some people in some lower governments and cities, maybe in towns and some county boards and things, town boards and things like that, they might think the problem is guns. But the people pushing the agenda at the top, governors and their council and state legislators and federal legislators and Congress people, they understand that the problem is not really guns.
Right.
So that word think, because they think the problem is guns, it only applies to half. And this is where the conversation gets really complicated because it applies to half of them. Yes, half of them might think that guns are the problem, but the other half know that guns are not the problem. They understand.
The people that understand numbers know that it's not. That's not the problem.
And understand the policy that they're putting forth because they can see their policy. They can see how taking the cops out of, let's say, taking the cops out of a city or defunding the cops or telling the cops to stand down. They see the immediate direct result of that. Right?
Not complicated.
Crime doesn't go down when you remove cops. Crime goes up when you remove cops.
Those criminals, I'll tell you.
So when you say they think the problem is guns, like I said, I just want to be clear that is only a portion of people, stupid people, who think that the problem is guns.
Right.
The smarter people who have a higher political agenda to achieve, they know that the problem is not guns. Okay, there's my point.
And they know that half the people think that it is, so they just play on
they keep
that.
going. Exactly, yes.
Power, right? It's just, it feeds on itself. It's pretty transparent.
Exactly, good point. They know that a lot of people, they know that
because they keep saying it, you know? And I mean, how many times, I've seen the term gun violence probably 15 times in the last week on different newscasts. And I'm like, why do they keep using that word?
Because it works.
Why do they keep using that terms? Like assault rifle. Why do they keep using those terms?
Well, now you're going to start seeing a lot more ghost gun. Ghost gun is going to be the new term.
Okay.
Because, and this is the stuff I'm going to talk about in the article. I don't want to really talk about this, but I have to now because you got me going on it. But the term ghost gun is going to be used to represent guns that are not registered. Okay. So because the ultimate goal is to get all guns registered through universal background checks. So the universal background, so they say, well, we'll see, we found one, but it will be much easier for us if guns were registered. So let's make sure that we pass whatever laws necessary to get all the guns registered. And the way we can do that is through universal background checks.
Where do they think those guns come from?
Yay, go Democrats. Yes, we want more universal background checks. So that's the game. So then, okay, so we talk about universal background checks equals a gun registry because ultimately they're going to have the access through the background check system to know where all the guns are. Bring in the red flag laws, and now you've got the tool to confiscate guns with the red flag law, and you've got the means to do it through the universal background check registry. The culprit here is these ghost guns. so you're going to hear a lot more. My point is you're going to hear a lot more about ghost guns.
Well, it's pretty convenient, though. It's another one of those boogeyman things that we can never really figure out what's going on or how to fix it. But
oh my God,
this is really important. Let's put it on the news every night. Ghost guns. I'll be watching for it.
I can't believe it. Oh my God, where are these ghost guns? It's so spooky. I'm so scared of these ghosts. Am I going to get possessed by these ghost guns? Are they going to haunt me, these ghost guns?
They're going to cause you to shoot somebody, probably. You're going to find a ghost gun and, must mean I'm supposed to shoot someone now. I got a gun.
Wait a minute. There's no serial number on this gun. Oh, it must be a ghost gun.
I can get away with it because I want to shoot somebody.
It's spookier than all other guns. Right, it's spookier than all other guns. It's a ghost gun. It's just
juvenile.
So, and people.
It's just ridiculous. It's like a fairy tale. It's just crazy. That's crazy.
The people who buy it are very stupid.
Someone
people.
Today I saw, and again, these generalizations get passed down until they become part of the normal lexicon. Well, we're talking about all these gun owners who figure they can't survive if they don't have a gun. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What, obviously,
well, there's an implication
you have
there.
a gun to be prepared in case something happens. So if something happens and you don't have a gun, you may not survive. So it seems like it's a pretty logical way to go, thinking if you have the gun, you might be able to protect yourself and keep yourself from getting killed.
But that statement right there is typical, and they've been using that for a long time. It's to imply that gun owners are irrational,
but
fearful.
Again, statistically, there's no evidence.
Doesn't
for that.
Matter. None of that crap matters.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I give up. Poltergeist.
The poltergeist gun.
We're back.
Oh, the red rum guns.
Oh gosh.
So the point on that is it doesn't matter. People will buy the narrative. They'll buy the notion.
Right, but we know that. Okay, so again, what in my mind what always comes up is like, how do you combat something that is that convoluted and that deep rooted in our understanding of how things are? People believe all kinds of things, and I don't know how you talk them out of it.
Well, and that's mostly the stuff that I talk about with like the Good Gun Bad Guy book series, which, by the way, people can get on Amazon or goodgunbadguy.net or goodgunbadguy.com. And the thing that you have to recognize is that the people who believe the anti-gun nonsense are stupid people. They need little bits of information, little chunks of visual things that they can understand. So what I try to do is help gun owners understand that if we want to change their minds, being fully indoctrinated into this anti-gun messaging, we have to do it in a way that appeals to them. And a lot of times it's simple chunks, it's simple words. There's no such thing as gun violence, only human violence. And it at least will help them think. Ghost guns don't exist. help them understand why they're using these terms. Ghost guns, like I said, chunk it down. Ghost guns are used as a tool to scare people into more gun background checks, which ultimately lead to registration.
So do we think that all the like we know that community guns exist, right? So these are probably ghost guns fit in that category, right? Like if I found a gun hidden behind a garbage pail someplace or up in a tree somewhere, I would assume that would be called a ghost gun.
I think what they're talking about, and I think the difference is most, any guns that are manufactured by a major manufacturer, Smith & Wesson, any SIG, any of these Glock, any of these companies will have a serial number on the gun. Right. So that's not a ghost gun. You may have a gun with a serial number that is stolen or illegal. That's not necessarily a ghost gun. I think what they're talking about with ghost guns is no serial number. So in other words, either homemade guns or serial numbers grinded off.
I'm assuming there's a whole industry, right, of making these guns that can't be traced.
There should be.
Well, there has to be, right? I mean, people are making these guns. Obviously.
We should be able to, and this is the craziest thing to say. What I'm about to say, people think you're nuts.
You're nuts.
We should be able to make our own guns by ourselves. Nobody knows, and the government has nothing to say about it. That's the way it's always been. Guns should not be regulated and registered by the government, by which we have the Second Amendment against. The Second Amendment is to limit the government so we, the people, can have whatever means necessary should we need to over leverage the government.
That's the right.
So giving the idea that government needs to know about these guns, it goes against the entire premise of the Second Amendment. And this this is the crazy. But you say this stuff now in 2021, and people think you're crazy.
Right. What, are you going to overthrow the government?
Yeah.
No. We don't want to overthrow the government.
Not if
but if somebody knocks on my door.
Right. Exactly.
Or doesn't knock on my door, breaks through my door.
We've gotten to a place in our culture where people either forget about why we have the Second Amendment or think that we've somehow evolved to a place where we can trust our government.
That's the problem.
Okay.
That's a huge problem. And that filters through everything, right? If you have a whole half of the population that figures, well, we'll just let the government, they'll take care of this, and then I won't have to worry about it. I think part of it is laziness, right? Yeah. Because they don't want to worry about the personal responsibility and accountability aspect of it. So they look at it that way. But we've trained people for the last 50 years to look at things like that and say, okay, government's going to take care of things. But if you dig down a couple levels on any of this stuff, you realize that they don't have our best interest at heart.
No.
Hi, we're from the government, we're here to help. It used to be a warning thing. That was a red flag, right? No, you're not helping me. Leave me alone.
Well, look at what Joe Biden said with the F-15s and the nukes and stuff.
I mean, and that has generated a lot of arguments in the last week. Well, what are you going to do? Overthrow the government? I says, you believe the guy with the hat on going in the Capitol on January 6th, they were going to overthrow the Constitution?
They didn't even have guns.
What are you talking about? Yeah. You're making your own argument sound ridiculous.
Well, it all does. And the thing is, they can continue to say whatever they want to say, and they just switch positions or they alter their narrative whenever they need to fit the narrative du jour. Right. And so they'll always.
The problem is the media doesn't ever go back and say, well, we were wrong about this. Everybody pay attention.
Right.
We were wrong about this. Right. Never, ever happens.
Because it's not the media, the left-wing media, which is the majority of the media, doesn't care about actually progressing as a country. No. And endorsing and supporting our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and getting back to and I use the word progressing very carefully because it instantly gets attached to the left wing. But progressing maybe financially or with manufacturing, with jobs, and progressing and growing, our country growing, I should say. They don't care so much about that and sticking to the Constitution, Bill of Rights as they do supporting the argument or the agenda of the Democrats. Frankly, it's Democrats.
Right. Generating problems endlessly so that they have power over the people that we understand they're going to believe whatever the government says. You only need half the people to do that, and then you're good to go, right? And you import more people every year, and sooner or later you're going to have enough of a majority where nothing good is ever going to happen.
And I think we got a couple more minutes here in this segment. I just want to talk briefly, since we're on the topic of guns. New York Governor Cuomo announces executive order declaring gun violence disaster emergency. This is so stupid, and people believe it. Democratic, and this is from Daily Caller, Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo issued an executive order on gun violence Tuesday declaring it a disaster emergency. Gun violence is a public health crisis, and we must treat it like one, Cuomo wrote on Twitter. This declaration, I'll do the Cuomo voice. This declaration allows us to give the crisis full attention and resources it deserves, he quotes. He said, declaration will allow us to give. New York City was enjoying its lowest crime rate in 6 decades before seeing a huge spike last summer, according to the New York Times. The violent crime wave has continued, with shootings up 38% in the first 6 months of 2021 compared to the same time last year. The spike coincides with defunding the police movement's rise in American politics. So the crime is going up because of no police, right? And Cuomo and de Blasio defunding New York police. But yet this is a gun violence epidemic. So again, it's just more stupid crap from stupid people.
It's stupid crap because so often these policies from the left, as I've said before, ignore human motivation. They think that criminals aren't paying attention that, ooh, there's less police. I'm just going to stay home and watch TV tonight. It's just so backwards.
Well, he went on to say, and I know we've got to wrap it up here, but he went on to say, today I announced a strategy to combat gun violence in both the short and long term using public health approach. And he said something to the effect of, we're going to treat this like we treated the COVID situation. Oh, so lock up your parents and grandparents in the nursing home, because here comes Cuomo again. Now he's going to do something the same approach with guns. So
he's nuts.
He is nuts, and not only that, he's a jerk. And I have other words that other names I could call him, but I'll use jerk because jerk is acceptable. He's a real jerk, and you know what other word I'm trying to say, but and I think that's his whole persona. He wants to treat people with an iron fist, I guess they say.
He's in charge.
Well, he's really not, but he's found a way to have leverage over the people. Right. And he might be in charge to a certain extent, but I think Cuomo would make a really good communist dictator. I agree. Anyway, okay, so we got to take a break. Danny's wrapping us up. Be right back.
I'm Danny Wos Jr., producer of The Loaded Mic. I just wanted to let you know that you can find us at Simul TV, Right America Media, YouTube, and Rumble. You can also find the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Or you can go to loadedmic.com. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review.
By now you've heard me talk about MyPillow and how it literally changed my life. They won't go flat. You can wash and dry them as many times as you want, and they maintain their shape. They're made in the USA, and for a limited time, Mike is offering his premium MyPillows for his lowest price ever. You can get a queen-size premium MyPillow for just $29.98, regularly $69.98. It's a $40 savings, and kings are only $5 more. So go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use the promo code RAM, like RAM. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow towel sets. You can also call 800-867-0416. That's 800-867-0416. But don't forget to use that promo code RAM.
The Second Amendment is a priority at the Loaded Mic. If we don't defend the right to keep and bear arms, there are people who are happy to violate it. The strategies and tactics of the anti-gun crowd and politicians are sinister, and we need to understand those tactics. I wrote the Good Gun, Bad Guy book series as the rule book to their evil game, so we can understand their strategies and motives to defeat them. Understand the mindset of the anti-gunner in Book 1. Learn the media strategies behind the gun grab in Book 2. And understand the politics behind their mission in Book 3. Go to goodgunbadguy.com.
So we're back. Thanks for that. You're welcome. There's a few things I want to talk about in this segment. So we're going to talk about Trump.
Oh, good.
Suing big tech, right? And we're going to talk about Biden and his door-to-door vaccines.
That's
vaccine
go over
checks,
well.
right? Yeah, that's going to go over like a fart in church, or a lead balloon, or what are some of the other things? Anyway,
yeah,
not good.
We get the drift. See where you're going with that.
So, and I also want to talk about the what is it called? Neiman Marcus break-in, the looting in San Francisco. First, let's talk about Trump, because I saw the press conference. It was pretty cool. And he said he's going to sue Twitter, Facebook, Google, and their top executives, their CEOs, their founders.
Okay.
I don't know if the guy from Google is the founder, but whatever. So the lawsuit is basically saying you can't restrict First Amendment rights of people if people are on the platform. Because the thing is, these platforms have now become public square.
That's the argument.
Right. And it's like it's almost at this point, in a way, telling certain people they can't get on the bus, or telling certain people they can't take the train.
Certain people they can't advertise in a newspaper.
Right, exactly. So this is going to be. So anyway, let's watch that clip. Danny, you got a clip of that? And
today,
we'll see
in conjunction with the America First Policy Institute, I'm filing as the lead class representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Three real nice guys.
Sundar Pichai. Trump's funny.
This is rampant stuff, though. People don't understand it before we get into the particulars of this, because I know Mike Cernovich just had an article removed from Google. Like, if you take the title of his article and search in Google, it will not come up.
Nothing.
If you go to DuckDuck or wherever other search engines and put it in, it comes right up.
There's DuckDuckGo, there's Bing,
right.
there's
so Google has banned his article. So you can search for something that exists, and Google will not show it to you. So that's to the point it's gotten, though, right? As you said, is that public square, or what is that?
Yeah. Well, it's like you had a great example. Telling people they can't advertise in the newspaper. Telling people they can't. Oh, sorry, you can't take this bus. What? Are you kidding me?
Well, the argument, though, you get from other people is like, well, it's a private company. They can do whatever they want. I go, but it's access. It's not just the fact that it's a private company. If I build my whole business by advertising in a local newspaper or on a local radio station for the last 10 years, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, you can't advertise with us anymore. Right. And then the people that are advocating for it say, well, just go start your own radio station, your own newspaper. Right. Okay, well, it's access. It's not just, whether I'm baking you a cake or not.
That's right.
I can go get a cake someplace else. I can't go get another, local newspaper has the circulation.
It is access. You're right, because it gives people, now people rely on that so they can have access to other people, to businesses, to other things. That's like if you wanted to purchase something on Amazon, but you weren't allowed to. I mean, what the hell is this?
Ghost guns.
The ghost guns. But how you can't, a private business could do that. A private business can say, no, we're not going to serve you for whatever reason, cake, whatever. But at this point, it's not a private business. They've crossed over into another completely different realm of public public, I don't want to say public domain, but public service, I guess, right? Isn't it?
It's global access. Billions of people access these networks, and then you say, "Oh, you're the president of the United States. You're saying stuff we don't like." Nobody's going to see what you say.
That is unbelievable, and that alone is going to go down in history. People are going to look back on that and say, look at it as an amazing thing that happened. How can a private company shut the president down?
Crazy.
So it just shows their power. It also shows their arrogance and their willingness to take a political side.
Right, and
clearly,
and dictate what's true to all the half of the people that we admitted believe whatever these people say.
Right,
it's a complete power trip, and but to not see that just shows us how deeply entrenched a lot of these people are in this stuff. Like, don't you think it's unusual that the president of the United States has been banned from all these? Well, he's a terrible person. I don't care if he's freaking Hitler.
Right.
Like, what the heck is going on here?
Well, they let Islamic terror groups on there.
Well, plus, you know, and the congresswoman there and stuff, all that stuff. People say all kinds of crazy stuff, and nothing ever happens to them.
Right.
You know, and the president says stuff that at least half of us would like to hear, and then these companies just decide, nope, you're out of here. So.
And we have to do this, and Trump has to do this, because not only to protect the free speech of conservatives right now, but also to protect the free speech and accessibility, like you said, to everyone, right, including Democrats. Because Democrats, you know, the way this tribal fighting has become is like nobody cares about the future. They just care about winning in the moment.
Dude, this is the whole right.
And this is going to affect Democrats later on down the road. Democrat voters, they think that they're so smart in winning this fight against conservatives. And in some respects they are, because of media and stuff. But they're so stupid to believe that, because it's going to happen to them if this continues. Thankfully, they should be thanking us, conservatives, because we're going to stop it.
Right.
Hopefully, we're going to stop it.
They can't run timelines. They say, first they came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. That's exactly what this is. It's like, this is again, it's not about the content of, and I say so often, people, just because you don't like a person, back up and look at the process that's going on here. If you think something bad happening to that person is a good thing for society at large, then you're not looking at the big picture, because it could just as well be you. As soon as something else happens and somebody's opinion changes, what you think is important could be thrown out the same as this stuff is being thrown out. It's not good for anybody.
And it most likely will be them. The thing is, we're coming out and we're going to stop it. Probably because, and being the victims of it is probably part of the catalyst, the reason why we're doing it. But it's going to help everybody, I think.
Long term,
it's going to help.
If they care about freedom, it's going to help everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. Do they really care?
I don't.
Does the average Democrat voter? You know, we know some Democrat voters, unfortunately, and. Do we know? Do you know any? I'm sure maybe.
Yeah.
And
you know more than I do.
Actually, you know, I shouldn't. I have actually some people who I can tolerate who vote Democrat. I can't tolerate their voting habits, but I can somewhat tolerate them in a public, you know, person on a personal level. But do they realize what's really happening, or do they just need to win? And is their hatred for Trump so great that they will do anything and sacrifice their own freedom, their own rights, just to get one over on Trump? Or these conservatives that they now believe are evil incarnate?
Yeah, a horrible guy like Ron DeSantis and stuff. He's a horrible guy, right? He's terrible. But that it is derangement syndrome, and if we could get some of these people to take one step back and take out the hatred for Trump and just look at the process of what's happening, they would say, I wouldn't want that happening to me. But they're not looking at it that way. They're just looking at, we got to do this because I don't like that person, or I don't like that thing. They're very short-sighted.
Well, just some of the stuff on social media. I mean, I see some of the discussions you get in on social media with some of these lunatics, and personally, I don't know how you even tolerate them, but how do they not recognize this stuff? How does your typical Biden supporter not understand what's actually happening here?
Well, I think a part of the reason is because, again, like we said before, they create these boogeyman scenarios where most of these people are never directly affected by any of this stuff. Like, how many Democrat state workers are affected by ghost guns? None. Right. So they're just saying, I'm going to take a moral stand on this. And that's what it all comes down to, is they've been convinced that their stand is morally superior. So when you're morally superior, you can make all kinds of concessions in all kinds of areas, and it makes it really easy to judge other people. Let's make that person the bad person. Let's make that gun the bad thing. Let's make racism the thing we have to fight against and have on the front burner all the time. It's just... It's a really, really shallow way of looking at anything, because it's all, like you said, it's all in the moment, static stuff. It's not dynamic. It doesn't play into the future, and it ignores, again, human motivation in a lot of these situations. They don't know why people are doing things, so they look to blame things. Let's blame the gun. Well, these people have problems over here. Okay, well, but they're using a gun, so we'll blame the gun.
Well, you made a good point. When
I saw a chicken scratch there.
I make notes so I don't forget stuff. The moral superiority. They do believe that they're morally superior because that's what they're taught. They're taught to believe that the decisions they make and the causes they support are for the greater good of humanity. And so they actually believe it. So part of the problem is that their fight and their argument is so fierce because they actually believe that what they're doing is morally.
Well, and what they've been convinced of, and this is why, and again, this is another downside of the going out of fashion of religion in a lot of ways, is that nobody's taught humility. What the media teaches you is that your position is morally superior, and it's your job to judge other people. That's the thing. So those people are bad people. Once you convince yourself that those people are bad people, you're off and running, right? Like it's often said, Republicans think that the right thinks people on the left are people with bad ideas. The people on the left think the people on the right are bad people with ideas.
Yeah, good point.
The whole moral thing. Once you inject that moral thing in, then you're self-righteous. Then all the things that the Bible teaches against, there's no humility involved in that. Same with another conversation I was having earlier about people telling other people what they should do. Like, just mind your own business is a good thing, too.
And another aside, or in addition to the way Democrats think they're morally superior, they also believe that they're intellectually superior. This is why they tout their college education, and they always want to talk from a place of authority.
Right, except that when it comes to things like guns, they just ignore the statistics, right? When it comes to all kinds of things, they just ignore the numbers and say, it has to be this because I know I'm morally superior and I'm smarter than you and I'm going to tell you what to do.
But the thing they don't understand is that you can train anybody to memorize stuff. You can go to college. You can take 20 years of college education. It doesn't make you any smarter. You're better at memorizing stuff. You maybe have collected some data. Whether or not that data is true or not is another story. But there's so many times I see these people who think that they're intellectually superior really are very stupid and have no common sense. They don't understand how this stuff applies in the real world and how we use our intelligence and how we use our education to communicate with people, to interact with other people, to live in a society. They don't get that part. That part is like God, but they think that they can speak down to you from a intellectually superior place.
Well, they're not taught wisdom.
Wisdom, that's a good point.
Stuff.
They learn stuff.
And then they learn that that's okay to judge other people. So once you know a lot of stuff and you've been taught that it's okay to judge people, you're off and running, baby. Let's go.
So take the intellectually superior and the morally superior notions that a lot of these people have, and you've created a political Frankenstein monster.
And the worst part about it is that when that comes right to the front line of conversations, say on social media, is that what happens is that perspective will never let them argue anything important because they will judge the person right off the bat. This is just cognitive dissonance run amok. Well, you don't believe what I believe, therefore you're a bad person. Okay, where do you go with that? How do I fight back against that? I got to start defending myself? You can't play that game, right? You can't go onto their playing field and start fighting face to face, because we're trying to talk about ideas here.
Yeah, and their influencers understand that. That's exactly what
Big
they
time.
do. Anyway, okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about, we got another clip that I want you to see. Okay. Joe Biden, let me just intro it. Joe Biden has decided, well, not Joe Biden, I don't think he's decided anything, but the Democrats, his handlers have decided that not enough people are taking this vaccine, the so-called vaccine. Okay. They've already tried bribing people, right? Yep. They've already tried coercing them in, I don't know, all these different ways, right? Giving them lottery tickets and then...
Were they giving them lottery tickets, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was Ohio did it with a $1 million...
Oh, they enter them in the lottery, automatically when you get the vaccine.
Cuomo here in New York did it with a $3 or $5 million lottery. So they're trying every way they possibly can. And although the people are getting their vaccine, there's still a very few people who haven't got the vaccine. It's not a few. Just so people know, it's not a few. There's a lot of people who've decided not to get this vaccine.
And it's at the point now where they're not going to.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what happened. Well, I just talked to my friend from the Dominican Republic out in the parking lot when I was coming in. He said that because Dominican Republic lives on tourism, right? And they haven't been able to let people in because of the vaccine. So now the president is saying, well, when we reach 70% in these certain areas, we're going to open up tourism. So probably August 1st or whatever. The thing of it is that they're going to have to fake the numbers, because if you haven't gotten it by now, you're not going to get it, I'm assuming, right?
Right. And they need the rest of the people, for whatever their reason is. I have a problem believing it's for the public safety of the people, the personal safety of the people. I have a feeling there's other things involved. Maybe it's the money the pharmaceutical companies are making off this thing. Maybe it's the deals they have with our hired representatives. Who knows? But they need, and they're desperate at this point. You can see it in the way they. So Joe Biden now comes out and says, "Well, we're going to take a different approach, and we might even have to come to your house." Yeah, well, you come to my house, and there's going to be a problem. And a lot of people are saying that across the country. You come to my house, and there's going to be a problem. So don't do it. Just for the good of everybody, don't come to my house and try to push a vaccine that I've clearly decided not to get, right? So anyway, so here's Joe Biden hinting at the fact that there may be some sort of registry now and going to, because there's got to be a registry, right? If you're going to houses and you're obviously going to the houses of people who haven't been vaccinated, right? How do you know where these people live? Is the medical industry...
So they're handing out your personal medical information.
Is the medical... I don't know. It's a question.
Or are they just knocking on doors randomly? That could be a good summer job, though. Excuse me. Have you been vaccinated?
Well, how would they know? Anyway, let's play the clip and then we'll talk about it. Danny, can you play that clip, please?
In today's briefing, we discussed how our administration is going to devote the remainder of the summer to a special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot, and their second shot for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood.
Why?
And oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Get help to them. They want to get help to them. These people, they just don't know about this vaccine and its availability. They don't know. They don't understand how serious the Rona is and how they can get help. These people just don't know.
I'm glad I know now. I feel much better. Oh my God. So when I hear that knock, I'll know it's going. Well, they'll be ringing my doorbell. They won't be knocking. Oh
my God. Can you believe the arrogance? They want to help. Joe Biden, he used the word help. I want to help you.
It's like Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door. We're here to help you.
We're
from the government.
I just, so back to the whole registry thing. How would they know what doors to go to?
I have no idea. And who's going to do this? Are they paying people to do this?
And are they going to be representatives of the government, or are they going to be actual government employees? How's that going to work?
Where are they coming from? Who's paying for that?
Yeah.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yeah, so I'm going to be paying out of my taxes to have someone in my community represent the government and harass me about taking a shot of what's the word I'm looking for?
I'll feel safer.
Unapproved is the word I'm looking for. I just don't. I just think they've gone way overboard with this, and it shows you just how desperate they are to get this into everybody's body. Doesn't that make people concerned a little bit? I don't want to be some conspiracy theorist, but they're giving me every reason to say, wait a minute, what the hell are you doing here? This isn't normal. You got a virus with a 99+%
survival rate, right?
Survival recovery.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Now you're coming to door to prevent that little percentage after nobody's even getting anymore. All the numbers have fallen.
Well, plus it doesn't even take into account any bad side effects that there might be from the vaccine, because we don't know anything about that long term. Argue people all the time, oh, long-term effects. I go, really? What do you have a time machine? Because I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now when I have spike proteins in my brain, or your wife has spike proteins in her ovaries, which might cause a problem, might not cause a problem. We have no way of knowing any of that, but that's kind of the point. We have no way of knowing. So don't act like you know and force people to do stuff. It's kind of tyranny, right? I mean, it's really crossing the boundary, I think.
Well, it's just, people don't really think about it, I guess. I mean, maybe they don't want to know. Maybe they're like, oh, whatever, I'll do whatever the government says.
They can't, but they don't. All they hear is one line. I mean, if most people aren't looking for other information, all they're hearing is what the government and the media is telling them, which is that you should get the vaccine no matter what, blah, blah, blah. And if I should get the vaccine and that's a good thing, therefore I'm looking out into the world, well, if we make it so that everybody can get the vaccine, that'll be even better, right? Has to be. Well, the government's telling me it's true.
If the vaccine works and all these people who've been vaccinated, they're not going to catch it. So what are they worried about?
I was at an outdoor show the other day talking to this guy who I haven't talked to in quite a while, and he's a Democrat, and we don't really get along politically, right? So I was, every time I see him, I'm nice to him, and I was talking to him about different things. And he says, so did you get the vaccine? And I said, no. He says, well, don't stand so close to me then. I go, okay. And I thought about it. I go, I wanted to ask him, did you get the vaccine? Because if you did,
what are you worried about?
You have the vaccine. So what are you worried about here?
Well, they're using the number like 20% of people didn't get it. It's much more than that. It's probably over 50% of people.
Kids, first of all, why did anybody vaccinate their kids?
But so here's my argument: if only a small percentage of these people, like a small amount of people, just still haven't gotten it, we need to help them, right? Well, if it is just a small amount of people, okay, everybody who's got it should be safe, right? If the vaccine works, and then that little group of small people can transfer the virus back and forth to each other amongst themselves. Talk amongst yourselves, and wouldn't that be their choice?
See, that'd be an interesting statistic to look into. Like, how many people who aren't vaccinated, who are associating with each other, have actually contracted the coronavirus? I bet the numbers are way low.
I think this virus is long gone.
I think it's
where is it? Who do you know has got it?
Nobody.
And if they do get it, it's like the flu, right? So they're getting better. Are there any deaths anymore? It's so terrible that they are so desperate. That's what makes me question it. It's their desperation to get everybody vaccinated when we never heard of this before.
Right. And instead of saying, wow, we've made a lot of progress on this. This is so good.
Yeah.
You know, this is the projections for the future.
Yeah.
No, we have to knock on doors and make sure everybody has the vaccine.
Tells me there's something else going on.
Something else going on there. I'm suspicious.
I'm very suspicious. I'm surprised that other people are. Well, I can understand why people who have the vaccination are not suspicious. They don't want to know at this point. They've got it in their body, and they don't want to know.
Well, what they said in California, too, didn't Newsom the other day say that CDC says that kids that are vaccinated don't have to wear masks in school? And California says, no, we're going to make them wear masks anyway because we want everybody to be the same. We don't
my God.
We don't want kids to feel discriminated against because they have or don't have the vaccination. That just came out yesterday, the day before. It's
So
great.
now it's a discrimination thing. Anyway, I know many people who've had the vaccine, and they hate when I talk about this stuff. But sorry, I'm not buying it at this point. If they're still pushing it with this type of desperation and this type of hype and this type of marketing strategy and propaganda, there's something wrong.
Right.
Something wrong. I don't know what it is. And I don't condemn you for getting the vaccine.
No, but the whole idea of a vaccine is protect a person against something. So again, I hate to keep saying it over and over again. Mind your own business.
Yeah.
If you're protected, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not the moral warrior out there that's supposed to change the world and make everything better, but this is what the media has instilled in people's minds. Like, I have to be out there fighting for all this. I have to be on the right side. I just saw some TV show today from 20 years ago where people are standing at a vigil with candles in their hand and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's making a big difference right there.
It's all right. We're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure I get this last topic in.
Oh, okay, here we go.
This was the Neiman Marcus break-in in San Francisco. So these lunatics go in and they break in Neiman Marcus. Now, I don't know how much these handbags cost. I'm assuming thousands of dollars. This is like really high-end stuff. And you got these freaking looters. What are they going to do with this stuff?
Presents for their girlfriends, I guess. I don't even know were the looters, were they male, female, or a mixture?
I guess we're going to find out. We have a clip. Let's see who they are. Go ahead, Danny.
The crime was captured on cell phone video around 5:45 yesterday afternoon. 9 people can be seen running out of the Neiman Marcus store in San Francisco's Union Square, carrying expensive handbags and getting away. Shoppers say it is upsetting and makes them feel unsafe.
Oh, my God.
I feel unsafe.
So
good for property values and stuff, right? People stealing stuff next door, breaking windows. Good deal.
Yeah. So what would happen is, and I think they said, didn't they say that one store across the street? What was that?
It was boarded up with a for lease sign in it, right?
Right. So people are moving out of San Francisco now. This is Nancy Pelosi's district, as far as I understand, and so people. So let's follow the chain reaction of what happens here. Neiman Marcus,
big high-end store.
People who can afford this stuff should be able to buy it. They enjoy it. Maybe the quality is superior to all other handbags. I don't know. I've never, not that I have handbags, but I don't know what the quality is. Anyway, let's assume they're really high quality and good stuff. And people want to buy this stuff. They should be able to. Okay, so these 9 jackasses loot the place like it's a freaking 7-Eleven, right? It's like,
why were they even in there?
I don't know. Well,
window shopping.
If they're looting handbags, they obviously don't have money to put in the handbags. What the hell are they doing with the handbag? Obviously, they're stealing it so they can either resell it or I don't know.
It's the mysteries of the criminal mind. And
why would you? Anyway, to the Robin Neiman Marcus, the place across the street goes out of business. What happens in Neiman Marcus? They say, okay, we just lost 9 handbags. How much are they a piece? I don't know. What are they? Up to $5,000. They could be probably a piece. So let's say, they could have looted out $50,000 worth of handbags. Who knows? That's a significant loss, right?
On its own.
Right.
Just on its own.
So how much does a company have to tolerate? How much of that do they have to tolerate before they say, screw you, we're getting out of here. You don't have the cops here because you defunded them.
Right.
You're letting these animals run wild and loot businesses. We're out of here. So then what happens to the city?
Everything goes down.
No, those jobs are lost. The business is boarded up, graffiti, and the dirt bags come in and start taking over the city. It's a terrible shame with such a good potential for.
Right. And that's where leadership comes in, right? I mean, when you got to clean up a city, it's a leader that comes in and cleans the city up, like Giuliani did with New York City. I mean, love him or hate him, whatever, he definitely made a gigantic difference. And that's what we need in some of these places, is somebody to come in and say, well, hopefully...
Curtis Lua, I think.
Curtis Lua, well, he's not going to win. But the other guy even is at least the next cop, right, in New York City. I mean, at least he hopefully might do something to put some different ideas in people's heads. I don't know. Is Leva going to win? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't followed that close enough. So Danny's wrapping us up, but we will, maybe next week we'll talk about it.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks for watching A Loaded Mic on YouTube, Rumble, Simul TV, and Right America Media. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, whatever your favorite podcast app is, we're there. I'm Dan Wos, and the Second Amendment is not a privilege, it's your right.
It is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating
it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out the
With
lies.
rules for Thanksgiving. Who the hell is he to tell us what we're supposed to do?
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find